That's right. Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here.
And Blue Dragon 5.
And welcome to the show where we. Jesus Christ, I'm sorry. Welcome to the show where we wax poetic about the movies we see on a month to month basis. It's time to crack open our.
Movie
Movie
Memoirs!
Memoirs! All right, folks. It's September. This is I don't know, September I think is officially eclipsed January as the worst movie month because it's right after summer, it's before the big fall movies get going, it's before the awards race begins. So Dragon, this was a little bit of a rough month, but we had a couple interesting things, so let's get right into it. Of course, first of all, we'll get to the news, and also Kogias is in the chat. I am having a good day, Kogias. I hope you are as well. All right, Dragon, what do we got? We of course we always start with the in memoriams.
Very true. So, we lost two folks that at least were on our radars this month. The first one was a rather, this one was, I think it was a rather universally kind of like felt one. And honestly, both of these were kind of universally recognized, but David McCullum, because even if you don't watch NCIS, you've heard of people talk about NCIS.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. That's the thing. I really don't watch NCIS, but you're right. It is a very prominent show. I mean, it's been on forever. It feels like.
Yeah. So David McCullum, in life he was really known for two things. This guy was a class act of an English actor. I think technically Scottish, but like David Tennant, kind of Scottish. So point being, yeah, this guy was a class act. He was the big thing he was known for, and probably in some respect, how he gets to NCIS for kind of the next generation. He was on The Man from Uncle, the original, like not the movie, but the original show. Yeah, he played the Russian character. He was the Russian guy from Man from Uncle.
Mhm.
But yeah, that was like the big role for him. And then NCIS comes around. He plays Ducky. He plays the medical examiner. So it's like he was like one of the two fan favorites. And look, I don't I was more of a CSI guy, so I don't watch NCIS. But
It was him and then that goth lady,
well,
right?
that's
I
what.
remember that goth lady being all over the marketing.
Well, yeah, she has a name, Abby.
I'm sorry. I'm
I
sorry.
know I was getting to naming her, but yes, Tiki. My point is, yeah, so with NCIS, even the little bits that I did get, you kind of get the idea. It's pretty much like a procedural crime show, only focused around naval stuff.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's Ducky and Abby were always the fan favorites, and he was the medical examiner. She was, I believe, she was essentially was the guy in the chair, but I believe like she was the lab tech. To the point where they worked in conjunction with each other a lot, I'd imagine. So, but yeah, so Dave McCallum, he did that, and of course that was like the big role. He's it was the most long running role he had because NCIS has gone to God knows how many seasons. It might actually be at season, I think it was between
I think
15
it
and
started
20.
in 2003, so it would literally be 20 seasons. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's like entering his 20th year. I remember like when he passed, I forget if they aired like the first episode again, like in memoriam of him. And then they put like in like that as like probably the beginning or at the end of the episode, like in loving memory of David McCullum.
Mhm.
The one other thing I want to highlight with McCullum, the reason he was really on my radar, and I kind of found out about NCIS and everything with this guy. He was Alfred. He was one of the famous Alfreds. He played Alfred in Gotham Knight. The
Oh,
the
there you go.
animatrix inspired, and he kind of popped up in a few other things. He voiced Alfred in some of the continuity driven DCAU films, which weren't great, but never a bad Alfred. And some of the other DCAU stuff and some of the other animated stuff. Like he had a really good role in Ben 10. He played kind of like the wise, kind of like time traveling doctor sort of guy. So yeah, he was. McCollum was McCollum was good, man, and the bits that I saw, he did have charm for days, and like kind of like old English charm, and it was seemed to be like a kind of the cuddly old man character.
Uh-huh. All
Yeah.
right. Okay, so yeah, Michael Gambon. Gambon. I'm really not sure how to pronounce it after all this time. I remember when he got cast as Dumbledore in the third Harry Potter movie, there was a big debate over that apparently has not been solved. So, yeah, for people of my generation, he is, of course, known as the second Dumbledore after Richard Harris. And Dragon, it's really interesting because I feel like he was kind of rough around the edges his first couple appearances. In Goblet of Fire specifically, there's this really infamous moment where he's like a lot more cold and mean than he is in the book, where he's just rushing towards Harry like, "Did you put your name in the Goblet of Fire?" And people like to joke about it. It's a meme in the Harry Potter community. But I feel like after Goblet of Fire, after his first couple appearances, he really grew into his own in the character and really kind of like took on. He was more rough around the edges than Richard Harris was, but by the time the series was kind of like evolving, it was actually appropriate to be more rough around the edges because, you know, Dumbledore in that series, like, he gets more desperate and a little bit more shady, and also it's just there's a lot more darkness happening. So I think it fits his performance. It's just the third and fourth movie still kind of in that whimsical kind of like transitioning period. Other than that, Dragon, he's a very renowned, I mean, just super accomplished character actor, stage veteran. I honestly, outside of Potter, I know him most from a movie that you might remember from, I believe it was this year I watched it at some point. The Cook, the Thief, the Wife, and His Lover. And he played the thief. So yeah, just an all around, just iconic once again of European British descent. You know.
Also, he was in he was in a Wes Anderson movie.
Which one? I forget which one he was in.
The Tan Aquatic.
The Life Aquatic. That makes sense. That's the one that I've watched the least. So that makes sense, and I wouldn't remember him being in that. But yeah. Any other notes on him, Dragon?
One other thing we should mention. He was in the first Paddington. He played Uncle Pazuzu.
Oh, there you go. Sure. Pazuzu. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we go from deaths to actual good news.
Endings. We go from one ending to another ending.
There you go. I don't know. I've heard mixed things about this though, Dragon. I've heard like. I got to admit, I haven't really looked into the actual semantics of it all.
I looked into some of the semantics.
Okay, good.
I only know as much as they've said. I don't know how it stands with everything. Okay, here's what we know. Well, T, why don't you tell them the news, and I'll tell them the semantics.
Well, the news is that the right is officially over.
Officially in quotes. So that's the thing. So the WGA, the W. Sorry, I want to make sure I get my acronyms right here. The WGA, they have, they've reached an agreement. So at least for the writers, the strike has ended pending a vote from today until I believe the 9th or the 10th. So that's as long as the vote's going on, and just I guess just to make sure everything's on the up and up and everyone's still good with the terms. So I believe which presumably everyone's going to be all right in terms to bring the thing to an end. So basically, if anything's going to go wrong, it's going to be between now and the 9th or 10th. So if anything, just like that's the only way something's going to change with this specific news. But as far as I understand it, the terms reached were that the writers have approval on the use of AIs, and Hollywood can't use, like the studio bosses can't use AI to replace writers. Writers have the option to use AI should they choose, but that is at their discretion. And there is a pay bump, but from my understanding, I think the compromise was there's going to be some sort of pay raise. I don't think they found a way to necessarily like track all the streaming, but there's going to be a pay raise. However, there is going to be a limited amount of writers for any writers' room. So that's
what I heard. I heard it was going to get more competitive. That's like the downside.
Yeah, and let's see. So with all that said, now here's what I don't know. Here's what was not publicly said. At least I don't think, or at least I kind of probe into it enough. I have no idea where we stand on all the people that kind of jumped in with the writers. So with the SAG, I don't know if SAG's still on strike technically or not. That I don't.
I am pretty sure SAG is still on strike.
That's gonna mud. It's like, hey, we're out of the woods. It's the question of SAG's gonna like you know what? Our buddies, the writers, are all good. So are we. Or it's like, okay, well, now we definitely want the AI thing to protect ourselves, and we also would like money. So who knows what's gonna? So I have no idea. That is very. I think the happy ending version is like, you know what? Our buddies are safe. So are we. They're happy with it. So are we. Let's just get the same terms. Let's get out of here. But if they hold out, I mean, I don't know. It's still gonna, folks. Let's just say, let's not get too excited about the strike is over. Part of the important part of the strike is over, but the ink hasn't dried until like let's say October 10th. I wouldn't count my chickens before they hatch.
Well said. Well said. Speaking of chickens,
Yeah.
good transition. The Chicken Run trailer, Dawn of the Nugget.
Yeah, break down some trailers. So yeah, I was I'm it looks like this is coming out this year, right? This
Yeah. I'm pretty sure close to Christmas. I
yeah, it
want.
looked like it was a Christmas release for on Netflix, which
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, it's essentially the trailer. The vibe it gets me. I don't know about you. It's pretty much well, the first movie was Great Escape with chickens. This is Mission Impossible chickens.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say outright, I'm cautiously optimistic about this one. Like Aardman is a pretty, they've got a pretty good track record as a studio. The one thing I'm worried about, Dragon, is I'm worried about like with this, there might be a factor of like, has it been too long, and is this going to be one of those things where, sin like like I'm kind of worried that this is going to be like a Zoolander 2 or something. Now, keep in mind, this is animated, and animated sequels, I feel like, are generally speaking a bit easier to pull off than like live action comedy sequels. But I don't know, like to me, there's a little bit of something in the air of like, okay, like the first movie is really beloved. And especially considering this is going straight to Netflix. I mean, Mitchell's versus the Machines went straight to Netflix, and I love that. So hopefully we'll get in that trajectory. But, you just never know with a Netflix movie. So I don't know. Again, cautiously optimistic. Like I'm hoping that it's really good. Is it going to reach the success of the first movie? Like that's the thing. It's like I really don't think it will. I mean, I think just because the first movie is just iconic. So we'll have to see how it goes.
I'd say there's no way it's going to eclipse the original because one, that's already a struggle any sequel has. But I mean, yeah, a lot of time has passed, and also like none of the voice cast is really returning on this. We're just going, but again, we're trying to embody the characters. So in the trailer, I got to be honest, not know if you didn't know, like we kind of changed the cast. I mean, so
I
far,
assumed it wasn't Mel Gibson.
yeah, it's kind of weird because Mel Gibson is getting work these days, but I don't know. Anyway, it's the fact that anyway, the point being, Chicken Run was kind of such a very pure thing. It was early in what DreamWorks was doing. It had Aardman really. It was very much an Aardman movie with kind of an infusion of DreamWorks, and it was kind of a mutually beneficial sort of arrangement.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just something kind of special about it. And I think the benefit that movie had that this movie is not going to have is that Chicken Run, because of not entirely the limitations of of essentially the stop motion, was that because we have to create everything on screen, it was a very closed in, very simple, direct premise of like, okay, we got to break out. Okay, we're breaking out of this enclosed space, and kind of this really cool, like nicely designed. Again, everything's very closed in. We're on
The
a chicken
pie
farm.
machine, Dragon.
The pie machine.
Damn pie machine.
That's what I'm saying. That's as ambitious as we got into our locations. And it was an amazing location. That's what I'm saying. It's a very close, indoors sort of story. And here it's not, and I'm not saying we're necessarily going all over the world. We were breaking into a facility, but it just feels like one that we have to go inside a place after we spent the whole movie escaping another place is one thing, and then it's a thing of like, okay, we're trying to not be a retread, but it's also like, okay, so the chickens are trying to prevent a new atrocity against chickens. I assume just based on the title, it's probably like a chicken nugget manufacturing place of some kind. That's my guess.
You're gonna have to stop getting the tendies, Dragon. It's all about the tendies.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just something. It feels like we're playing with fire with the simplicity of the original premise. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to be. The trailer did give me the vibe of like, man, that reminds me of all the good times, the good nostalgic, like, watching on HBO for the first time, kind of memories of Chicken Run. Of just like, yeah. But this movie, I mean, already it's like the movie's in broad daylight. We're not at nighttime like we were so constantly, like a gray sky and like it's
Uh-huh.
nighttime during
Uh-huh.
a breakout. Like the atmosphere is not really there. It just feels like it's going to be some fun with Aardman, which is kind of what we have. I think it's going to embody kind of what we have with Shaun the Sheep, which I think it'll be a good art. First and foremost, if we're lucky, it'll be a good Aardman movie. But I don't think it's going to be like like the man. Look at what DreamWorks is capable of, sort of thing we had way back then.
Totally, totally. Yeah, I feel the same way.
All right.
All right. Also, speaking of stop motion animated movies based on farm animals, Code Geass reminds us that Michael Gabon was in Fantastic Mr. Fox as the main antagonist. So yeah, that is a pretty prominent role for him as well.
Oh yeah.
Also, Keeper Colby, aka Peregron, is in the chat. He says he didn't catch a single movie in theaters this month, first time since last year. You weren't missing a whole lot. I mean, there were some highlights, but we'll get into it. All right, so Dragon, Aquaman. I was honestly kind of convinced this was going to get pushed back, so I got to
Me
admit,
too. I was so convinced it was going to get
yeah.
pushed to next year.
So I'm kind of surprised we got a trailer. For me, it looks all right. Like, I don't know, the two things that keep me going and keep me a little bit invested in this are Tamora Morrison, or I'm sorry, is that his name, Tamora? I'm embarrassing myself right now.
Man, now you threw me off with the Tamara thing because I think it's Tamara Morrison.
Tamora Morrison. I just want to make sure that was his last name.
No, it is Morrison. Yeah, it's
okay. Tamora Morrison. Yeah, Dragon. I could watch a whole movie of just him and Aquaman just shooting the shit. And
I know, right? That was my favorite part of the trailer too.
Yeah, I could watch a whole movie just based on that, and I know it's just going to be like 5 minutes. And then also, I like me some Patrick Wilson. Patrick Wilson's always fun, and I also like me a good villain redemption arc. Looking at Norrington from the Pirates of the Caribbean trilogy. So we'll see. But Code Geass does say that DC has done so bad this year that the Paw Patrol movie is going to be more profitable than those 3 movies. Well, you know what, Code Geass? That's partly on DC for having such inflated budgets. So we'll see how that goes.
But yeah. With the Lost Kingdom. I mean, I think it's cool seeing Aquaman as king. Like since we set up at the end of the last movie, he's in like the orange and green. My fear is he won't be in the orange and green for a lot of the movie. You're gonna put him in that dumb looking stealth suit. But the point,
my whole thing with the whole him being king and kind of being bored with it, Dragon, is that we're basically just doing Thor: Love and Thunder again. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting.
I think that is the worst case scenario that we are going that way. And I think I don't know. I'm not quite getting that. He didn't look bored with being king necessarily in the trailer to me, but it does seem like we're taking him away from running the kingdom. And you got to remember too, like Aquaman, there's like this weird thing where, mind you, I haven't caught up with a lot of Aquaman comics and stuff, but aside from the original Jeff Johns run, which is basically what the first Aquaman movie is based on. So that's essentially as much Aquaman as I've really read. Now, the thing is, with Aquaman, the challenge of that character is, okay, so he's king of the 7 seas. What goes on in the 7 seas? He's essentially a traffic cop. There's that, and occasionally there's Namor-like shenanigans where he's fighting man. He's fighting man, he's fighting cool villains, both of which we saw in the first movie and the Trench Guys, so all 3, really. But anyway, however... So the status quo at the start of this thing, which is the two of them chatting, and we gave Aquaman the kid, which is it's kind of a pro and a con. Pro in that Aquaman was very much a story about it's kind of a parental story, father sons and kind of a boy looking for his mother to some degree, but still the bond between those two is very strong, and it's about Aquaman in kind of that King Arthur journey with like the 2 parentages and from land and sea. That's very key to who he is. And making him a father is a good idea, and that's something from the comics as well. Of course, now we have the big hanging chat of what to do about Mira.
Yeah.
And we did see her in a very quick, like blinking you miss it glimpse in this movie.
And she's going to be like unceremoniously killed off screen, like Cyclops and X-Men 3 style. Honestly,
it feels like what we're going to do is so in the comics, Aquaman's son got killed by Black Manta. Now, I don't think we're going to kill a baby in this Hollywood movie. I think what we're going to do is kill Mira. we're gonna either kill one or both. They're gonna kill either Mira and Aquaman's dad, or Aquaman's dad to go for. I mean, look, that's gonna be the heartbreaking thing, because if they do, that would be full circle, because Aquaman,
I
Black
mean,
Man
to be
ablames
fair,
Aquaman.
if they just kill Mira, they would kind of have to throw his dad into the mix too, just to actually get an audience reaction out of that.
Because that's the thing. I mean, with him, the audience reaction sadly might be positive.
Exactly.
That's gonna be real cringy too if like Mira dies and people say, "Yay!"
Yeah, yeah,
But seriously, I mean,
yeah.
the killing off his father would be a payoff to the whole Black Man Aquaman feud from the first movie. Like, my father got killed, he blaming Aquaman for that, and vice versa. So that's, I mean, of course, Black Man looks really cool in this movie. However, here's my fear really with this movie. It's less the whole Mira thing of it all. It's even less Love and Thunder, because I'm not quite getting that vibe, at least yet. Is that I like Black Man seeking revenge, the whole Orm redemption, but the Black Trident thing feels very like, as a plot point, feels very like, It's like we spent the whole first movie looking
Totally,
for
totally.
a cool, important Trident, and it's like, and now there's a black one, there's a cursed Trident, and there's like a lost kingdom, and these are the plot points that already make, because that was like the one thing that the Aquaman movie had going against it for me, is like everything else feels really good except for like, man, why do we have to keep going all these kingdoms, and
Yeah, it
why
was a
can't we
little
just
too
make it one
complicated.
kingdom?
I agree. Yeah.
It's like, if they're gonna do again, that was the one. That's the thing. The first Aquaman movie suffered from. We're gonna move on from here. Is that the problem? Is they did not know they were getting sequels, so they crammed everything into. Okay, if we're just gonna do one Aquaman movie, we're gonna make it the definitive Aquaman movie, which means we're gonna do the seven. We're gonna do the multiple kingdoms, and we're gonna have Black Man in there. And to its credit, the Black Man stuff is awesome. But yeah, we're doing Black Man again, and now we have the Seven Kingdoms, and we haven't really introduced them because we already did that in the first movie.
Yeah, we'll just have to see. I honestly think the chances are pretty slim that it's actually going to be a success at the box office. Just because there's so many things going against it. There's the Amber Heard thing. There's the fact that it's just taken. Once again, I feel like it's a couple years too late. I kind of feel like if this movie does well, it's going to do well just based solely on the strength of Jason Momoa as an
Yeah.
actor. You know what I mean?
No, I concur. I believe that's what I'm saying. The movie's going to make money purely because of Jason Momoa.
Right, yeah.
But you're right. It's it's going to be
It's
a bit
also
of
just got the thing where it's like finally we are at the official endpoint of this anything like tangentially Snyderverse related.
But it's the other thing too is just, its competition is like going to be Wonka. So
Right.
so based on that, it's like,
I
well,
wonder what awkward shoehorned in cameo Wonder Woman's gonna have in this movie.
now that is actually is a good question. Just given that yeah, fitter than all the other ones.
God, all right.
Well, probably the worst case will be a post-credit scene, but we'll work her in there.
Yes, just as a tease to have you stick around, I did watch The Flash this month, so stick around for catch up to get my opinions on that.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Kogia says, I hope they don't do to Mira what they did to Cyclops. I adore the X-Men films, but I haven't gotten over how badly they use Cyclops.
Yeah, that was really bad how we killed off Cyclops in that movie.
And now we just have an even more like meta contextual element to that because of James Marsden and Jury Duty. Like, we actually know, like, you could imagine how that character would react to that. All right. Kogia says, regardless of how you feel about Amber Heard's offset behavior, I like her acting. I hope Mira will be used well in the film. I mean, I respect that. Okay. So next trailer, what do we got? It's the Dream movie, right?
Well, the Dream Scenario.
Dream Scenario. Okay. Dragon, holy shit. I gotta tell you, buddy, this could go either way. This could really go either way. You
mean there's no blind faith for your boys doing this movie?
By my boys, do you mean A24?
I guess collectively I meant your studio, but yes.
I mean, A24 has put out movies I don't like, Dragon. You know that, right? A24 put out Beau is Afraid. And
that's true, but you have a very blind allegiance to A24 most of the time, though.
I have a blind allegiance in that I will go see pretty much every A24 movie. That doesn't mean I'm going to love every A24 movie. That's a very big difference.
But I gotta be honest. See, I'm very skeptical of A24. I think there have been I can count on one hand the prime successes that I've seen. Marcel the Shell will choose on being one of them.
But you're just saying prime successes just as far as movies that actually appeal to your
Oh,
sensibility.
sorry, I said as far as I'm concerned. I didn't say like it's like the end all be all, Tiki. I'm just saying as far as I'm concerned. But
Right,
yeah,
go on. I'm sorry.
my point. My point is, this one I think there's a fun premise here. I mean, this is gonna sound really pedantic, but it's like, I think it's simple enough for them not to screw it up. I think they
I gotta
got
admit,
it.
I hate the song. Okay, there's a couple things about this trailer I don't like. Number one, the way that they use that song to be like, look how uplifting and inspirational and quirky this movie is. I don't like. It's like something out of like a mid-2000s trailer. Also, I kind of wish that I mean, I know that we had to watch it just for the sake of this, but it's one of those trailers that I feel like gives away too much of the actual plot. I kind of wish I would have gone into this a little bit more blind. Like, for example, I went into the Nicolas Cage movie like pretty much completely blind, and I loved it. So we'll see how it goes. Yeah, it's a weird premise. It's Dragon. Do you know about the internet? I think it's like it's not really a creepypasta because it was something that actually happened. Have you seen this man in your dreams? Do you know about that?
No.
So basically, long story short, it was like there was like a drawing that a psychiatrist did of a man that their patient described, and other patients saw the drawing and also claimed that they had seen the same man in their dreams. And it's kind of like an interesting like internet thing that kind of went viral on Reddit. So I think it's kind of like a similar idea. I don't know. I think this could be I think this could either be like an Eternal Sunshine or it could just totally crash and burn. We'll have to see.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It seems like the critics are praising the heck of it. Then again, they do that with everybody.
I've never fucking even heard of this movie. That's the thing. That's why I don't trust those critic blurbs.
As I've said, look, you can never trust the critics. They're always what are they
An
going
instant classic.
Think
I don't
about it.
trust that, Dragon. I'm sorry.
Let me ask you this, Tiki. Here's a question. Okay, let me ask you this: if you saw a trailer for a movie and it had like honest reviews, like it wasn't for me, would you see that? Would you respect that and go see that movie just for the honesty of like most
like
critics like this?
5 out of 10.
I would say like most critics like this. We're gonna say 3 out of 5.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Like, would you see the movie with the honest?
I'm just saying, instant classic is a little. That's a little much.
No, I agree, but seriously, I mean, honestly, if a movie like advertised like that, it'll be an okay time.
All right, fair enough.
Regardless, it's the fact that Nick Cage. Seems to be an interesting role for him. It's kind of a heady premise of like this guy just keeps appearing in people's dreams, seemingly just by sheer happenstance or coincidence. And I don't know, it's kind of a fun miracle exception for a plot. Like, okay, what if he showed up in everyone's dreams? How does the world react to that? I don't know. It seems kind of fun. It's not a movie I'd see in theaters, but it's a movie I'd stream.
Colby is with me on the going to see every A24 movie. Heck yeah. Kogia says, I'm more of a fan of B25. All right. And finally, Dragon, we have Argyle. And Dragon, I'm gonna just lay down an unpopular opinion right now. All right, you ready for it?
What?
I just don't think I'm a Matthew Vaughn fan.
Like at all? I thought you liked Kingsman.
It's okay. Like I'm not even really compelled to watch the second one just because I've heard it's not great. Here's the thing, Dragon. I'm not really a James Bond guy, but I think people like Nolan and people like even like an Edgar Wright, I think they do Bond-esque stuff in a way that captures my sensibilities a little bit more. I don't know. Matthew Vaughn's style it just doesn't fit my sensibilities for some reason. So I don't know. This looks fun. I do like the idea of of the basically the fictional spy thriller kind of like bleeding into the real world and the author being involved in spy shenanigans and everything. Like I like that as a general premise, but I, Matthew Vaughn's style, it's kind of starting to feel very samey. It's almost kind of starting to feel like he's like the action movie Wes Anderson, which should be really cool for me. But as you know, I'm just not really an action movie guy in general. So, like, I don't know. I definitely think that this could very much be a movie that lands for a lot of people. But it's like, like you were just talking about, where I go to see it, I'm like, yeah, it's all right. I'd give it like a 7 out of 10. I don't know, but you seem to be more stoked for it. So by all means, talk it up if you want.
So I really like Matthew Vaughn's work. I really like his directing style. So I mean, I got to admit, I saw this trailer, I had no idea it was even him when I watched it. And it was like from the
Oh, I
start.
could
When
tell.
I saw,
I would have been able to tell.
well, I mean, all I saw was like literally the picture of the cat and the stupid little purse thing. So that's all. It's a little backpack. That's all I saw. So I couldn't really make this from one image. I couldn't tell it was Matthew Vaughn. So I clicked the thing anyway. Of course, then when the dice fell, I was like, oh wait, that who I think it is? And it was.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I mean, I'm so sold on this just on Matthew Vaughn's return alone. But beyond that, just seeing Cavill as kind of as like as what seems to be the James Bond type, and then we have that great reveal of like, okay, this is admittedly very similar to the Lost City in premise. It would seem, admittedly.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad we even have John Cena in there.
Yeah. So look, no compunction with that. Yes, very irrelevant.
Right.
However, what we didn't have was Sam Rockwell.
Sam Rockwell, I must say, is giving me some real Luke Wilson energy in this trailer, which I know is a weird comparison, but that's just kind of like the vibe I got with the beard and everything. I don't know, but yeah, Sam Rockwell does genuinely seem like the most fun part. Honestly, Dragon, I'm not gonna lie, Bryan Cranston feels like it's just like, yeah, it's Bryan Cranston. We're gonna throw him in as like I don't know. Like Cranston has not really done a lot that's amazed me post Breaking Bad. You know this. We've had this discussion before. It basically looks like another role where he's just playing Bryan Cranston. We'll see how it goes.
I still, you know what? I'm really gonna get you to watch it, even if it takes you forever. I should show you that clip from It's Always Sunny.
True. I mean, fair enough. To be fair, Bryan Cranston does have Your Honor. That would probably be the best. I haven't seen season 2 yet, but
you gotta see season 2. Oh my god, he's so good in that season.
I know. I need to. But that would probably be the best post Breaking Bad Bryan Cranston.
Yeah. So that is a great like rough time. Yeah, that's the thing for him.
Certainly anyway, a lot better than Trumbo.
I don't want to kick Trumbo while it's down.
Who remembers Trumbo? It's just so random that he got nominated for that.
Just like the mustache in the bathtub type of like don't drain the bathwater on the guy. Don't do that.
Anyways, I'm sorry.
Anyway, my point. I mean, Cranston being it is also like, oh my god, look at our stars again. We got Jackson, we got Cena, we got Cranston. Like, oh my, like this movie's like direct, it's marketed towards me, man. But yeah, just I don't know. It's just I like the style, I like the idea. Like they were going to subvert like Cavill's Bond, which is what everyone's kind of like leaning to right now. Which, of course, is like a thing where they're probably not going to make Cavill the new Bond, but it's kind of like it's a nice little like fantasy to have. We're actually calling out the fantasy. And we're I don't know. I just like the idea of like we're almost going somewhat of a vague Max Landis vibe with the whole like subversion, and there's Sam Rockwell is like the actual espionage guy, and yes, it feels like it's a better to me. And I had not seen the Lost City, so I can't say full on, but it feels like maybe
Lost City was decent. I thought
I know it looks decent, but I can't say because I haven't seen it, so I can't say. But you probably can. I
honestly think Daniel Radcliffe kind of stole that movie.
Look, my hope. Again, I haven't seen The Lost City for comparison's sake. my hope is that it would be a more energized, or at least maybe a more interestingly directed version of the Lost City.
Mhm,
With
mhm.
espionage, with kind of a different kind of genre in play versus like kind of like the Indiana Jones fare, more of like the actual spy fare. So I don't know. I've been seeing a lot of like kind of limp attempts at kind of like the espionage kind of rom com sort of thing. And I'm not saying they're going a rom com direction here. There's really an indication of that, but still, it just seems like hey, we're gonna we're going in the direction of like a kind of a comedic spy adventure that's not just going to be Melissa McCarthy on a scooter that she can't possibly operate.
To be fair, that is one of the better Melissa McCarthy vehicles, I think.
Do you mean the scooter, or do you mean like the film?
I mean, just the movie Spy. It's one of the more tolerable Melissa McCarthy movies, in my
No, no, you're right. But
opinion.
wait? Did you watch that HBO movie that she did?
The
The
one with Corden?
yeah, the one with Corden.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, I just want to make you like that, didn't you?
I mean, Dragon. It is exactly what you think it's gonna be. I don't. It's a comfort watch. Yeah, sure. It
Okay,
was
anyway.
fine.
Okay, so yeah, point being, I'm sold in Argyle.
All right, and let's move on to September 2023 movies. Okay, Dumb Money Dragon. You and I both saw this, right? You did see it.
Yeah, yeah, I saw it. Saw it this past week.
Okay, so why don't you start us off? What do you think of it?
So yes, this of course is Craig Gillespie's biopic on the big GameStop stock affair that happened during the pandemic. And man, I love Gillespie's work. The man just knows how to direct a biopic. I think I don't think this. I don't like this as much as I Tanya, but that's because I Tanya is a little bit more of a has more of a. Let me just
Well,
put
I
it. I
Tanya's got
Tanya's
the whole mockumentary thing going for it. That
That's
this
what I'm saying.
just
I, Tanya has a mockumentary, and it's a more concentrated kind of story on like Tanya Harding and how
uh
the media perceive Tanya Harding. Where this is kind of a lot of Gillespie's really cool work, especially the biopic related stuff, has been like viewing these big. The man tracks media very well. That's been his signature. We have this. We have even his involvement in Pam and Tommy,
Tommy, yeah.
and I Tanya, Pam and Tommy, and something like this, and all of them are about kind of the media
Honestly,
response
even
to.
Cruella was it definitely dabbled in the 70s kind of like punk rock London aesthetic. It was definitely a period piece.
So that's what I'm saying. He's very one. I think he captures period extremely
Uh
well. For starters, because we have all these projects that he's taken on have kind of like been in all different time periods. All very. I know iTime is kind of more spanning time periods, but let's just say essentially, that's kind of capturing that extremely well. Even like when we're doing the interviews. Pam and Tommy is very specific.
hmm.
Cruella, and this of course is also very specific, but very modern.
I'm
In that
just
sort
gonna
of
say
regard.
right now, this is probably my favorite use of COVID in a movie so far. Just as far as like how we
We really don't have many good examples of that, though.
I mean, the example that I think of, and honestly, it's from a movie that I kind of like less the more time passes, is Glass Onion.
I know that's in Glass Onion is like the only movie I can really think of that like properly like is a movie that incorporates the
But
pandemic,
even
but
then,
like not.
it does that weird thing where it's like, okay, we're just gonna fucking give you like a magical COVID cure, so you don't have to be wearing masks for most of the
I mean,
movie.
Tiki, the last time I saw a movie that's actually set during that was shot and set during the pandemic was terrible. It was that Anne Hathaway Chiwetel Ejiofor movie, which I can't bother remember the title because it was so bad.
Well, Borat 2, yeah, that's a decent example. But yeah,
Yeah.
I hear you. So yeah, this one it actually incorporates like the feeling of the COVID era and like kind of like the awkwardness around the masks and how some people were super vigilant about it, but a lot of people weren't. Just the whole air of it. Just the scene with America Ferrera at the gas station was a big highlight. You know what I mean? Just little moments like that. Anyways,
Yeah. Anyway, so but yeah, it's just it's very we captured the era, we captured the setting very well. We star-studded cast. I think Gillespie just gets people and he gets the time periods and he gets kind of like the people's natural reactions to things. So I think it's basically Gillespie taking on kind of a David and Goliath story, which has always been ultimately, I think, his strength, because you have a bit of a David and Goliath story with Tanya trying to kind of like do things her own way, even though like everyone's like
Oh,
turning their
totally.
nose
Yeah.
at her. And Pam and Tommy is well, that one's a little bit more of a unique kind of David and Goliath story, because we start off in a David Goliath story, then we kind of turn into something else. Turn to
I mean,
basically it's David
again,
and
even
Goliath.
Cruella is kind of David Goliath.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, like with Pam and Tommy, it's like David and Goliath that then turns into a love story, or kind of a love tragedy, I guess, however you want to call it. But yes, so that's the thing. So we have that with the incomparable Paul Dano playing playing our YouTuber here.
Yeah, another role that I'm sure he's not going to get nominated for, but he does a really good job in.
If he ever
Such
wins,
is life.
you know what he's going to do if he wins if he wins the Oscar, he makes a speech, right?
What's he going to do?
He's going to sing Ave Maria.
Oh God.
No, he's not going to. I'm sure it'll be a lovely speech. He'll actually do a really good job with it. But still, the fact that Paul Dano is great in this film. I love how down to earth. This is like Gillespie's specialty here. So, I mean, folks, overall, I mean, I like the movie. I don't think I like it as much as Tanya. But Dano and his family around the table, I think, was probably one of my favorite scenes in the movie. I love. We got Clancy, but do a dance for the Clance.
Yeah, Clancy Brown, of course.
Do a dance for the Clance. There he is.
It's so great to see him pop up in live action because he's such a prominent voice actor.
Yeah, I know he's been popping up in Dexter and this, and he popped up in the Gen V show.
Oh, did he? Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
yeah, he's got he's in the boys now. He's technically in the boys. So, but yeah, he's I love him playing the father, and the idea he's like a blue collar guy. He kind of raises kids with good principles, but like realistically, and like Pete Davidson's a real screw up of a character. He's Terry's like the worst Uber driver ever, like the worst DoorDash guy ever. And I love the fact that this family they've incurred a loss like presumably during the pandemic from the virus and stuff. And it's. I mean, here's the thing. I like the movie. I do like the movie. I fear that financial stuff might go over some people's heads. So I think that's the main criticism.
I remember it going down in real life, and I've seen the documentary on it, and it still goes over my head. Dragon.
That's the thing. Like, I mean, here's the thing. You know what's weird? See, I started that documentary. I didn't finish it because the financial stuff was going over my head already. But I could get through the movie here. I could track the movie, like even with the financial gibberish that was there. I could understand at least what the cause and effect was of things. That's what I can glom onto. And I think that it does play. But I think if you're trying to like process entirely what exactly went on, I think the general audience might be a little lost. I think the movie does have context clues, but I don't know.
I mean, we just need Margot Robbie in a bubble bath.
Well, we need that on every movie too. Anyway, so here's the thing. I do question the pig though. I love D'Onofrio as Steve Cohen. I think he's delightful. He's so it's a role. We've never seen D'Onofrio really act like that. I think it's fun. But the weird giant CG pig is weird to me. Like, why did we couldn't get a real pig? It's like, I don't know.
So, I honestly think I'm a little bit more mixed on this movie than you are. Here's my perspective on this. I honestly think the big problem with this movie is I think it's good for sure. Like, it's a solid 7-8 out of 10. I think it's probably my least favorite Gillespie movie. Like, I honestly probably like Cruella a little bit more than this. Maybe that's just coming in from it. I'm kind of grading Cruella on a curve because it's like by far one of the best of the Disney live action, whatever that they've been putting out. Dragon, simply put, this movie just has way too many storylines, and the editing is just kind of all over the place. I think a lot of the storylines are good. I think by far the most compelling section of the movie is right in the middle, where there's all that tension about whether or not they should sell the stock or not, and the fact that if one person sells, then all the dominoes will fall over. I really like that. Here's what I think they should have done. As much as I did like Paul Dano's family. Like I think every person in that cast was a good performer. We have Shailene Woodley as his wife. It's nice to see her pop up in something again. Pete Davidson, I think he's been having a good year. Of course, Clancy Brown. Here's the thing, though, Dragon. I feel like the movie would have been better served if Paul Dano was more of an enigma of a character. And if we only saw him through the videos. And I really feel like I feel like America Ferrera probably should have been the main character. And I strongly feel like we could have cut out either the college kids or the GameStop employee. Probably the college kids. I think give more time to the GameStop employee because I think his story does have some meat on the bones and it does have an unrecognizable Dane DeHaan performance, frankly. But yeah, I absolutely think, like, honestly, America Ferrera, I think in this movie is better than she was in Barbie. Like, Barbie, she has the big monologue moment. But here, I think she gets a lot more to chew on from a performance point of view. So I would center the movie more around her. And like I said, like, frankly, I think as nice as some of the family stuff with Paul Dano was, I think it was a little bit like almost like stock, like family, like the Pete Davidson character being a slacker and there being the sibling rivalry and the whole like running in the lightning thing. I thought was kind of like a little bit of a Hollywood screenwriting thing, frankly. So yeah, The Big Short is the better movie. Richard's Victims, I agree with you there. It's good, Dragon. I don't really.
Well, look, I agree. It's still Pam and Tommy or I, Tanya. It's. I think
I don't really expect it to make my top 20. Honestly, probably honorable mention, but
I don't know. I think there's a lot right in this movie. I do. I mean, I did enjoy it, but I mean, that's the thing. I wasn't head over heels for it, but I thought it was. I thought it was a good watch. And I mean, I think deep down why I like this movie, it's kind of like Gillespie in some respects. It's not one for one comparison, but I mean, just in terms of like the subject matter, and I guess kind of like the big money and the one percenters we're talking about here, and just how callous they kind of are. There's a little bit of a Vice kind of vibe to me. I really like the movie Vice. So there's a little bit of that for me with this.
I hear you. Also, can I just I'm going to rant for just 1 second, okay? That song that plays over the opening credits, Dragon, my reaction to that song, do you know what song I'm talking about?
The Where's My Cat At song?
Yes.
Yeah, it's very central to the movie. It comes back a lot, Tiki. So yeah, I remember I know the song you're talking about.
Okay, Dragon, do you know that King of the Hill moment where Hank Hill puts on the headphones to listen to the rap music and he's like, "My God, this just sounds like toilet music." The toilet sounds. Dragon, that's my reaction to that song as an asexual person. It's just gross. Get that shit out of here. I don't mean to be a prude. I just don't like shit like that. So,
I gotta be honest, a part of me does wonder if someone would do like a music video, but instead of what the subject matter is, it's basically it's animated cats. Like, where's it at? And then we're seeing like all these like cats react like what? Sort of like I don't know.
Oh God, yeah. So you like the song, son of a bitch. I feel so out of touch with modern music because I cannot relate to that song at all. I'm sorry. I can't do it. It's just so in your face. I'm sorry.
Well,
I'm
the sounds of the song, literally.
About it.
Yeah.
All right. Anyways, let's move on before I get canceled, Dragon.
Well, oh God! So we might as well talk about this next one, though.
Right. Oh God. So this is a documentary about the ongoing and very, very like eye-opening, terrible abuse that's been going on in the Boy Scouts of America for decades.
Mhm.
Okay, good.
So yeah, let's say the title of the movie too, Tiki.
It's Scout's Honor.
The Secret Files of the Boy Scouts of America.
Thank you, thank you.
On Netflix.
So Dragon, I think this movie's hard to watch just because I think the actual subject matter is just, frankly, it's brutal. Like you see how psychologically damaged all of these victims are, and you hear about their abuse in pretty graphic detail. But Dragon, the thing that this documentary has going for it that it can really hang on its hat is it's got a really killer protagonist and villain, right?
Yeah.
And just the way that they edit those two interviews back and forth, the guy who, who joined the Boy Scouts like as the safety guy and basically like found out all this shit.
And it keeps getting shut down at every opportunity to like reform and like, okay, guys, let's just address this, fix the problem, and then we can redeem the Boy Scouts.
And then you have the guy on the other side who's essentially like the public face of the Boy Scouts who's saying like, no, everything's fine. And it's such a good back and forth, Dragon. Honestly, like that was kind of like the element of the movie that really kind of kept me on the edge of my seat. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's basically this thing explores just the utterly shady dealings of the worst aspects of the Boy Scouts of America, and that poor guy from within just is all regaling us with all these tales, hearing all these tales of abuse and just being blocked at every turn. It's just this. Boy, it's just the fact that they shielded all the guilty parties and deflected all the blame. And, it's like the idea that every time I was like, well, okay, well, we have all these settlements. Well, good luck getting payouts because the organization's still around. It'll be like, it's like, oh, yeah, you're on the waiting list to get your payoff. It's like, wait, really? How long? You'll never know. It's dark and depressing stuff. For sure, and but that's the thing that was kind of the main reason I watched this was like, you always hear like, the horror stories about like, oh man, like, let me put it this way. We're at an era now where we're actually looking into like the old institutional jokes of like, like, oh yeah, the Boy Scouts and like all sorts of like, like the very friendly Scoutmaster of the Boy Scouts. That's always like kind of a darkish joke that you've had.
Right.
You actually look at it like, like in black and white print, so to speak, when you look at like, the actual like detailings, and like, so it kind of seemed like it was like a thing that was worth like, let's actually see what the horrors are, just because we've always kind of made light of it in the past. Maybe we should actually kind of like face it. And then that's kind of what this is about. We're actually facing like, yeah, it's not just like isolated incident. This is like a systematic like abuse of power has been going on. It's essentially, like, it's almost like the age-old like Catholic Church sort of thing, practically.
It's very similar to the Catholic Church. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. It's like a step removed, and I think they kind of get into it here as somewhat of a cross. There's a bit of like a Venn diagram kind of nexus between the two. I'm not saying it's like a big conspiracy. Well, I'm not gonna say conspiracy like officially, but I'm just saying it's like these are similar circles they're traveling in, so there's kind of some bleed over, some crossover there. Anyway, again, dark stuff, not exactly the happy-go-lucky documentary we'll be talking about later, but yeah,
it's not the happy-go-lucky documentary Depp versus Heard. I'm kidding.
Well, I was thinking of another one, but sure.
I know. All right. Okay. A Haunting in Venice. All right, so this is my first Hercule Poirot movie. I'm terribly sorry.
Wait, you didn't see the remake on the Murder on Orient?
I have not seen either Murder on the Orient Express or Death on the Nile. No.
Okay.
So this movie is it's okay. It's like, it's a pretty standard murder mystery, if I'm being honest with you. It's got some good atmosphere. It was shot on location in Venice, so there's that. And it does have a decent hook of, Hercule Poirot is kind of dealing with the whole concept of the case is that he's trying to disprove a medium who's played by Michelle Yeoh, who's by far the best actress in the movie. Like, she absolutely steals the movie in the scene she's in. Unfortunately, she's not in a lot of it, but like I said, absolutely steals the scene she's in. She's like the reason I even saw it in the first place. And I mean, like, her performance in this movie is basically like a victory lap from winning the Oscar. Honestly, it's like, look how talented I am. But yeah, honestly, just the way that they go about the mystery is just it's pretty standard for me. Just kind of like, interviewing people and narrowing down the suspects, the red herrings and everything like that. So yeah, you're not wrong, Kogias. The recent Hercule Poirot films have a pattern of getting just okay reviews and making a just okay amount of money at the box office, but they keep making films. You're not wrong, and I feel like this is yet another. It's very okay. I was very whelmed by it. Honestly, Dragon, I saw it with my grandma for her birthday, and if it weren't for that, and honestly, if it weren't for just me wanting to get enough movies in this month to fill out the poster, I probably wouldn't have even seen it. Is there actually good horror elements in the Michelle Yeoh seance scene? Yes. Other than that, not really. There's some good psychological stuff with Hercule Poirot. I'm sorry, it's just fun to say that. Trying to like figure out like okay, surely this must not actually be paranormal, but I can't explain what is actually going on. But yeah, I mean, don't like Colby, don't walk into this thing, expecting like an actual horror movie. That's all I'm saying. It's very very light horror adjacent, if anything. So yeah, like I said, Michelle Yeoh is by far the most memorable element. Other than that, I'm really not going to remember much about this in T-3 days. Yep, already forgot.
Tiki, don't just steal from that guy.
I know. Credit to Jeremy Johns. All right. Okay.
Okay, let me tell you about The Saint of Second Chances.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a strong recommend, Tiki. This is a documentary. It's on Netflix. So basically, now you know me. I'm allergic to sports. However,
I'm just picturing you like even driving by a sports stadium and having an allergic reaction.
Anyway.
Oh no, we have to go to Angel State. We have to drive by Angel Stadium to get to Disneyland. What are we gonna do?
Someone else driving me. Close my eyes from sneezing. Anyway, so the other thing, I do like documentaries. They do sometimes revolve around sports. That's the only time I really closely get into sports. Like, for example, like when we did the whole Screwball thing. You remember Screwball? You told me about that one.
Yeah, Screwball was good. Yeah,
like something like Screwball, or sometimes like the Olympic kind of conspiracy, like Icarus or something like
Barry
that.
Bonds was like a local hero. So yeah, that was a big event for sure.
So this particularly is about the son of the White Sox promoter. So this guy, Bill Veeck. Bill Veeck was the White Sox promoter. His son is Mike Veeck. And essentially, again, it's less about baseball in the conventional sense of coaches and playing the game. These guys are the promoters. They run the stadium. It's like they bought the franchise of the stadium and they host the White Sox. And I forget if they have ownership in the team or not, but essentially, that's the thing. They're not like maybe the owners of the team, but they're not like the actual. They're on the working the game at all. It's more like it feels like fever pitch in terms of it's like fandom of baseball. It's really what this is about. It's about kind of the family and community of baseball, and it's a father-son story. It's kind of a parentage story of just this. I think that's really just I think that's the real undercurrent of the film that works for it really well. And it's a documentary, but it's narrated by Jeff Daniels, and
Right.
They do the thing where it's not all over the place or like you've seen conventional. Like there is like a There's that thing you have sometimes in documentaries where they're going to like cast a guy, like an actor, to play the young version of the guy who's telling the story, kind of like that James Bond documentary I showed you, Being Bond. Where we
Uh-huh.
have like the younger version of Mike Vick, played by Charlie Day from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Of course.
So yeah, it's not fancy. Just occasionally you'll check in with them, and I gotta tell you, Tiki, watching this was kind of like Kevin Smith's Wayne Gretzky story, where I was kind of like shocked by how invested I was getting in this father-son story. Only with baseball and the behind this, literally the
I
literal
heard the Wayne
insight.
Gretzky story. That doesn't sound familiar.
Really, you never like? Did you ever see Too Fat for 40? That special?
I don't think I have,
Yeah,
honestly.
Okay, so let me tell you a mini story here. So Kevin
Okay.
Smith, when he became a stoner for the first time, he basically watched this. I guess he watched a documentary on Wayne Gretzky, and this basically how he became very invested in hockey, or at least went down the rabbit hole with hockey, and learned
Wait a
about
minute.
Wayne.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Wasn't Kevin Smith's whole thing hockey jerseys? Like, wasn't that literally his entire fashion sense?
Well, I think this is before the hockey jersey. This is what gave him the hockey jersey.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I'm saying he'd play like a little bit of hockey, like on the roof, and like you saw in Clark. There's
I
like
guess
very little.
for some reason I remember the hockey jersey thing being a thing in the 90s, but you're right. That was probably more of a
No,
late
that's the
era.
thing. The hockey jersey was after like he became a stoner. That's like the Gretzky era. So
Got it.
he
Got it.
becomes a
Got it.
stoner. He
Okay.
watches the Gretzky stuff, and that's why he wears the hockey jerseys. That's where he went on from like the hoodies to the hoodies and the oversized
Oh,
jacket.
that's yeah. Of course. Of
So
course.
that's kind of
Okay.
the arc of Kevin Smith's wardrobe. But my point is, he went down the rabbit hole while high as a kite, and he basically was super invested in the Gretzky story. And he's finding out, like watching the thing, and oh god, Gretzky Senior died, and he's running back to to his wife Jen. He's telling her
But yeah, I
everything.
think I do remember that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so that whole thing. So it's kind of like an equivalent of that, where it's like the story between these Vex, this generation of Vex, is very moving to me. Where the idea is that, uh, Mike Veck, he wanted to, he was like hired by his father. Everyone's like turning a nose up at him, like at a nepotism. Like, okay, the boss, the father hired the son, but the son's trying to do a really good job, and he's trying to make his father proud of his boy.
God.
And yeah, so it's just this thing of the idea they're coming up with interesting promotions to bring people into the parks. And here's the big centerpiece: Mike Veck. Tiki, if you watch it, you're gonna love this part. Mike Veck came up with the idea of like doing like a theme, like disco was all the rage then, but there were people that did not like disco, so we're gonna do Disco Demolition Day. And essentially, everyone who brought like a disco record would get in for 99 cents, and they put all the all the records into this giant trash can, this giant dumpster, and then they would destroy it on the stadium. But it led to almost a Fire Fest level event.
Oh no.
So, which is very fast. So that's kind of low of lows, and you have this bittersweet moment between father and son. But it's like, no, the father's not mad at him. It's a whole thing. Anyway, the point being, so that's the catastrophe, and then you get into the second chance of the Saint of Second Chances.
Okay. Sounds good.
Sorry, but yeah, so you get into the second chances of it all there. So like, Mike has a family and he has a daughter, and that's where we get into like the hope and everything, where it's like he's kind of turned it around. He's kind of like got he's kind of opened he started his own franchise, and I guess long story short is that there's hope with like this guy. It turns into a story from a father and son to a guy and his daughter, and then the hope turns to this unspeakable tragedy kind of befalls him. And all I can tell you is that it's a very moving doc, and I think it's a standout this year as far as documentaries go.
Nice.
I don't know if it's gonna make the top 20 or not. I mean, top
What is
10,
it on?
no. It's called The Saint of Second
Yeah, but
Chances.
what is it on?
Oh, it's on Netflix.
Netflix. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so I recommend. I mean, I don't know if it's going to make the top 10, but it might make the top 20s given the way this year's gone. So,
All right, Monkey is in the chat asking, just came in, may not get back to this vid till post stream, so just asking, has the inventor been mentioned? Monkey, are you talking about the creator?
I don't think
Is that what you're talking about?
I don't think you can read.
If you are talking about the creator, that's actually what we're about to talk about.
Why don't you tell them about the creator, too?
All right. So this is Gareth Edwards' first post Rogue One movie, which is really interesting. Dragon, as you know, Gareth Edwards, me and him kind of have a little bit of a complicated history. That
Gary.
Godzilla movie was very much like very hyped up and very much let me down. Oh, he's talking about the stop motion Leonardo da Vinci movie.
Oh, that one. Yeah. So he said, did that not?
Has that already come out? Because Monkey, unfortunately, neither of us have seen it. All right, I'll definitely look into it though. Um, anyways, the creator. So Dragon, I feel like this is very much on point with Gareth Edwards' trajectory with both Godzilla and with Rogue One. Visually, it's amazing. Like, definitely one of the best looking movies of the year. Like, honestly, this movie was made for $80 million, and it looks so much better than, like, most, if not all, of the non Guardians of the Galaxy, because Guardians of the Galaxy is its own thing. Those movies always look really good. But, you know, outside of Guardians of the Galaxy, all of the big, like, hyper budget movies we got over the summer, this looks better than all of them. John David Washington, definitely a better protagonist than he was in the movie in which he was literally called the protagonist. Like, he definitely has a more likable character this time around. Unfortunately, Dragon, this movie suffers from, it's got some really slow pacing and it's got some really mixed pacing to it. And the biggest thing that people are talking about that I kind of agree with is that premise-wise, it's very much kind of like Blade Runner meets Logan meets Elysium. And honestly, outside of just kind of like playing the beats, especially the Logan thing with the, it's just recycling the same kind of lone wolf and cub. You know, unfortunately, we're kind of at this point with storytelling where it's like we've just kind of seen this story before, where he's John David Washington is accompanying this AI robot girl who may or may not be the last chance for peace in the war with the AIs. So it's very derivative in that middle section of the movie that's basically just like the road trip. It's very The Last of Us. But the movie does have a killer third act. Which Dragon, are we sensing a pattern here with Gareth Edwards? Killer third act, but it kind of is a little awkward and clunky to get to that killer third act. So yeah, ultimately I kind of went on a roller coaster with this movie where when I first started seeing ads for it, I thought it looked very kind of like, I don't know, just like first of all, when I saw the title, The Creator, at first I thought it was like some sort of weird like Christian science fiction movie. Like it's got nothing to do with that. I don't know. I just didn't think the ads made it look too appealing. But then the reviews were like, "Oh my god, it's one of the best science fiction movies." And so ultimately, when I saw it, I'm kind of landing in the middle, where it's like it's not bad, but if we're talking like top 20 here, which we do have to start thinking about, we only have a few months left in the year. Definitely not making that. I don't even think it's in the top 20 of the movies I've seen so far this year. But again, that's just because of the pace and the fact that it's just like, all right, we've kind of seen this lone wolf and cub thing a lot. But Dragon, I think it very much could be a situation where you like it a lot better than I do. So I would still give it a chance. I could see you liking it more than me. So, All right. Okay, and finally, It Lives Inside. This is honestly, I'm going to be kind of harsh here. It's kind of like derivative wannabe A24 art house horror Trek. Honestly, it's premise of the movie is that there's a very, very troubled girl at the main character's high school who is also Hindu. So that's the one thing that this movie has going for it, is that it's got some cool Hindu elements to it, like culturally. So the lead character is also Hindu, and this very, very troubled girl who's like obviously like, kind of like the probably is going to be a school shooter type. Like you can just tell she's just very fucked up in the head. She carries around this jar dragon, this weird fucked up looking jar. And during a big fight with the main character, the jar breaks, and the jar apparently was holding some evil spirits or some bullshit like that. And the rest of the movie, the main character has to fight the evil spirits. And as you can tell, I'm not amused by this movie. When I saw it like come out in theaters, like I hadn't even heard of it, and I was desperate for something to see in theaters. So I was like, "Oh, cool! An original sounding horror movie with with kind of like a cultural slant to it. Awesome!" But it's just very forgettable. Honestly, by far the most interesting element to it for me was the opening act, where we're just kind of dealing with this very, very, very troubled person in a high school setting. And honestly, that character kind of goes away for the most part once the jar gets destroyed. Like she actually gets kidnapped by the ghosts. Ooh. And the main character has to save her. So it's, I don't know. I don't like this movie, Dragon. Just straight up. I don't. It lives inside. Avoid it. It's not great. I'm sorry. All right. Transitioning here. Let's get into TV. You start us off, Dragon.
Let me tell you about Painkiller.
Now, I gotta say, with Painkiller, it's like Dope Sick pretty much traumatized me, Dragon. So it's like it's just like emotionally, it's gonna take a lot to get me back into a show like this. So go ahead, though.
Well, let me put it this way. I think there's one traumatizing storyline, but aside from that, I think it's a lot lighter than Dope Sick.
Uh-huh.
So Painkiller is very interesting. So this is basically a Netflix show that's competing with Dope Sick, as you can probably tell.
Right.
So this is more specifically based on Dope Sick, I believe, is based on a book, where this is based on an article that was focused on, basically the narrative and everything is focused on the Sacklers and the Purdue Pharma side of things. So it's basically they're the
I'm just
central.
saying, how many TV shows do the Sacklers need to be dramatized in, Dragon? That's all I'm saying.
Well, apparently 2 in a movie. So far, that's what the tally seems to be.
All right.
But yeah, so so this is focused more on the kind of Sackler side of things, and basically kind of everything's kind of like feeding into that story here. So Matthew Broderick plays Richard Sackler.
Ooh,
and
okay.
he's really good in this. I mean, really good. I mean, look,
son of a bitch! I might have to watch.
I want to be clear though. In my opinion, I don't think he's Stolberg's playing like D'Onofrio Kingpin, so I love that.
I'm not expecting him to be better than that, but as long as he's different, as long as it's like a different take.
Yeah, I think this. Yeah, it's very different from what he did. It's not just like the same. It's not the same Richard Sackler. This is the more quirky and weird Richard Sackler.
Oh, okay.
Like the Richard Sackler, because you saw Stolberg. He had with that Richard, he had dogs and he liked dogs. And like the ideas, like the family's a fancy family, so they had like big dogs. But Broderick here, he loves his dog.
Oh God.
Also, here's the best aspect. Love this. Kind of Bates Motel-y to some degree. Clark Gregg is in this. And Clark Gregg plays Uncle Arthur. He plays basically the patriarch. The guy who founded Purdue Pharma essentially. Uncle Arthur, who's basically a hallucination for Richard Sackler in this.
Oh no! Oh God!
And I gotta tell you, man, I won't say how, but Clark Gregg's death. Because remember, Arthur Sackler, because it's a legacy thing. Essentially, he handed the company down to the rest of the family, particularly Richard Sackler. He's not around in this story, hence the hallucination. But his death is very chilling to me.
Ooh,
that's what I'm saying. It's a very chilling death for Uncle Arthur. It's like, oh man, it's like nightmare fuel to me. Anyway, so this thing, it's well directed. It's basically. It's the framing device for this is Edie Flowers, who I can't remember. It's been a while since I've seen Dope Sick. I don't know if she's supposed to be the same character, or like it's the same character, but we changed the name for for the Rosario Dawson character in Dopesick. But I think the difference is Rosario Dawson, I believe, was like I forget if she was a detective or not. I forget what her association was because she was either a detective. Edie Flowers is essentially a prosecutor. Essentially, she's like pursuing Purdue Pharma in a case in illegal. She's trying to take him to court. That's essentially what her role. That's what her role is in this show. And I forget Rosario Dawson. I think she was like part of the DEA or some branch of the DEA. That's what I think she was. So I think they're different characters, but they are, for all intents and purposes, they are ostensibly playing the same role in the story. They're the people going after the Sacklers and being smart about it. And essentially, we're interviewing her in the aftermath of everything that's happened with the opioid crisis. And Edie Flowers is played by Uzo. I'm butchering your name, mind you. Uzo Aduba. Now, Uzo Aduba, I recognize instantly because she's from Lightyear. She was Alicia in Lightyear.
Was she in Peacemaker too?
No, you're thinking of someone else, Diggy.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
I know what you're thinking, but no, it's not her. But okay. Yeah, she is. She was Buzz Lightyear's first partner in Lightyear from the Act 1, which is the best part of Lightyear. That's all her. So I think you really like her, dude, because she's like this lonely, this lonely law lady who's playing Tomb Raider alone. Like back in the early days, like she's calling the helpline and everything for Tomb Raider too.
Oh God,
it's really funny. So let's see. So here's the thing. So the other plot line, we have basically 4 plot lines. You have Richard Sackler, you have her, you have this poor family man who is Taylor Kitsch plays him. Taylor Kitsch plays this poor family man who is injured. He's essentially, for our narrative purposes, he's patient zero. He's like Betsy from Dopesick. So obviously there are a lot of parallels to Dopesick, but we go about it in very different ways. So this guy, he's the element that's going to be maybe triggering for you. I don't know, because what happens to this guy is just very tragic and sad. It's like Betsy to some degree, and it's hard stuff to watch. I'm not going to lie. Taylor Kitsch plays it extremely well, and and I tell you, there's some great build up here and there. I love the build up to Edie Flowers has a scene where she is in the same room as Sackler, and that's the one thing we did not have in Dopesick. We did not have crossover between our stories.
Sure.
That was the one thing we did not have. And yeah, there's let's see. So also there's one. The 4th plot line is the one I think is the weak sauce plot line of the bunch. It's basically like it's the watered down version of the Will Poulter story that we had in Dopesick, where it's like we have the sales lady who kind of second guesses her actions. And I don't know if that was a thing where in real life it was maybe a female instead of Will Poulter. Maybe that's what Dopesick. I don't know which one's the accurate version there or not. Or maybe it's like this happened a couple times in the opioid crisis. I don't know, because we name drop the lawyers from Dopesick in this. We don't see them. We don't do anything with them. We name drop them like the real guys.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. But at the end of the day, this is no Dopesick, but it's good. There's no Keaton in this, we don't quite have that, but we do have a lot of really good stuff going on here. I think the direction's kind of fresh. A lot of crossover, but no Keaton. So yeah.
All right.
I think it's worth watching, especially for the Broderick of it all.
Richard's Victim says the upcoming stage musical about the Sacklers looks cool though. Richard's Victims, Richard Sackler. Okay, let's see. He said Richard's Victim says, from what I hear, it's way more entertainment focused. Is that true?
That's what I'm saying. There's more laughs to be had. Because here's the thing, because from the Sacklers' perspective, they're a bunch of crazy 1% rich guys. So they're in a room and they're panicking about their next paycheck. And you have like Richard Sackler's trying to calm the room down. So there's comedy to be had here and there for sure. But yeah. But there's a build. Oh, let me tell you one more thing about it. There's this great bit, the first episode, where Edie Flatter, they're building up like her and Sackler, meeting up, and there's this thing like where, wait, he was in this room, and he's sitting in this chair, and she demands that the chair be removed from the room.
Nice.
Like that's getting to that Bates Motel sort of thing that we love, where it's like the whole thing like she hates him so much. She hates this man so much she won't have that chair be in the same room.
All right. Okay, next up, Depp versus Heard. Honestly, I don't have a ton to say about this thing. The only reason I really even watched it was just to see Andy Signore, because I remember when he was covering it pretty incessantly. I do think the most interesting element of it is kind of like the morally gray, sort of like how sensationalized is the media making it. And I will say that it does a good job with kind of like, because there is some, I'm not gonna lie, Dragon, there is some stuff about Johnny Depp in this one that kind of gives me a little bit of pause. Like, don't get me wrong, like as far as like between the two, he was absolutely the victim for sure, but he wasn't an angel in the situation either. So that's kind of like the interesting kind of like morally gray, complex kind of element to it. But I do think it's an interesting kind of like how the documentary is essentially like, it's both about the case and also about the media circus surrounding the case. And honestly, I feel like a better approach to this would be maybe like in 10 years to do like maybe instead of a series, do like a proper like, feature film documentary that's just all about the media element to it. Because honestly, I think that's the even more interesting side of the story, because honestly, the actual case is just a bunch of icky personal stuff that I just, it kind of ruined both their careers. But I do think it's very interesting how the media just, like, it was probably the biggest media case since like OJ, right? Like it's up there with that.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I mean, it has an OJ vibe in terms of like, obviously without the murder, but it's an OJ vibe in the sense of like it's a televised trial. Which, I mean, count on one hand the amount of like substantial televised trials that we've had. I mean, because you have OJ, and then I mean I'm sure there are others in the interim, but never as big. And you have like something in terms of like everyone is
Michael Jackson.
Was Jackson televised though?
Yes,
Okay,
yes, that
Jackson
was very televised. I remember the E Network did.
So I remember like I know it was televised, like him getting from point A to point B to the courtroom. I forget if it was like
no, there was like stuff inside the courtroom.
Okay, I remember the gag was like, when's his nose gonna fall off? Everyone's like waiting for the nose to fall off. Yeah. Anyway.
So yeah, decent watch, but honestly, kind of like not a lot I didn't already know, except for maybe taking a little bit of pause of like, Johnny Depp is the victim, but he wasn't necessarily like victimless at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, still you gotta the Signor stuff was pretty it's pretty enjoyable, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I lived through that shit, so yeah,
Yeah.
it was enjoyable to revisit it for sure.
Yeah.
Because that is pretty much what he chose to make his career out of, after Junkies.
That's what I'm saying. And Signor just be desperate for views, just desperate for validation.
All right, next up, Harley Quinn season 4.
All right, so we did a whole Rohit Dar and I we did a whole conversation on the whole kind of recap, spoiler cast on season 4 of Harley Quinn. To boil it down, season 3 of Harley Quinn was when the wheels were slowly starting to come off, and that we introduced the Bat family, and it was kind of this thing where we were taking pot shots at the Bat family, and we kind of violated, I feel, the cardinal principle of the show, which is the key to its success for 2 seasons, which is there's essentially we can be as irreverent as we want, and we can kind of celebrate the DC universe by calling out like the wild and weird aspects. Like basically, the show is an irreverent call out of the DC universe. I love that aspect of the show, and I think that's why it was really successful, because it was like things are, well, this is accurate to, like, these things did happen in the comics, and we're just kind of calling out after all these years, and we're having fun with it. And these characters are doing kind of crude and absurd things, but still crude and absurd things that do track with like what they would do given like the leash, given the leeway of like, okay, if we could go this far, would they act like this? Well, I mean, I think they pretty much would. So I mean, the first 2 seasons I think operated in that with like occasional, maybe like season 2 had maybe like 1 or 2 jokes I didn't like, but still 2 was still very solid. And then 3 is like when the Batman gets introduced, and we're Bruce Wayne's acting in ways he would not act, and then 4 is when the wheels really, if they're not completely off, they're hanging on by a thread, man. 4 was a rough one. We lost the heightened believability. We have Harley with the Bat family, which in itself is kind of an interesting idea, but we have no conflict. Like her and Ivy are just like they're doing their own things. We've separated the power couple, and because of that, well, there's no conflict. They're really on good terms, and just it's kind of hard to describe. So everyone's kind of suffering on this. It's like everyone's acting a little out of character. We're like Nightwing's getting thrown under the bus. We're the interesting track that we're laying with the Joker is like, okay, well, we got bored. We turned back to being a bad guy, which it's a big surprise, but why did we do that in the first place, sort of thing. It's just we wrote Bruce Wayne out practically when it seems like we might have been actually doing some interesting stuff with him at the end. I mean, if they maybe could have bought back the weird Bruce Wayne stuff they did in 3. So it was kind of very much like any potential that we may have had in the weird directions that we went in season 3, we didn't do anything with. We had plot. It seems like they had no direction for 4, and they had a bunch of like weird. Like, let's just do a bunch of wacky off the wall stuff that's completely like something these characters would never do. Like we're inching closer and closer to going full Teens Titan Go with this sort of stuff. Like it feels like where it's like we're just using the visage of these characters just to be like a raunchy adult show. But that's not to say it didn't have its occasional like fun wacky gags. Again, wacky gags had nothing to do with Harley Quinn or the plot, but like Bane going to Italy, for example, that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Like Bane's trying to fix a pasta maker this whole season, and he goes to Italy and he becomes like an actual pasta maker.
Oh God, that does sound delightful.
So that is delightful.
I would watch a season just based on that.
Well, honestly, Tiki, that's all encapsulated in one episode. I mean, if you can just watch the Bane scenes from that episode, I think you'd be pretty set. So I don't know. It was a mess to me, man. Frankly, it was a mess. I don't know if 5's gonna be able to do any damage control for this. It's not what it once was.
That's a shame. All right. Well, Dragon, what do you want my mystery show to be?
I know what I want it to be, but I'm pretty sure it's gonna be right. So why don't you tell me?
Okay, well, hold on. Before I do that, let's get to the comments really quick. Random question. Now that the WGA strikes are done, do you think the SAG strikes will end soon? I honestly don't know. I'm hoping so, but I feel like ever since the strike started, everyone kind of knew that the actor strike was going to be more complicated to resolve. So, I'm hoping for the best. It's definitely a step in the right direction, at least. Code Geass, I have also not watched past season 1 for Harley Quinn, but Harley Quinn, it's a shame because season 1 was really good.
Season 2 at least ends in a place where if they never came back, they would have still been in pretty good shape. So you should watch season 2, Tiki, and maybe just call it quits there or whatever you want to do. But watch 2.
Okay, Gotham Knights, Dragon. I know that you got your issues with Gotham Knights.
Yeah, I believe you're referring to the show, right? The spin-off.
Yeah.
There's also a game too, which I mean, the game's a lot better than that Gotham Knights show. But yeah.
What about Pennyworth though?
Yeah, here's the thing. Pennyworth. Here's the thing. I dropped off the third. I never watched the third season of Pennyworth, but I did see the first 2 seasons. And I mean, look, Pennyworth's okay. It kind of feels like. Imagine the most watered down version of Jarvis from Agent Carter as a show.
Oh God!
But it's not.
Jarvis from Agent Carter is already like a watered down version of Alfred.
So, but to be fair, though, I mean, look, we love Jarvis in Agent Carter.
Yeah, but still, he is pretty much just Alfred.
I guess what I'm saying is, it's the Pennyworth. If you're a diehard kind of like Bat fan, and you actually give Alfred credit that credit's due. Like I think collectively we all like Alfred, but if you actually Alfred did have wartime experience and everything. So if you kind of play it like that, Alfred himself is compelling in that show.
Well, I mean, there's never been a bad Alfred.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. So Alfred, like so the Pennyworth aspect in the first, I think the first season is pretty good in that we have like an aspect of the Alfred as some animosity with his father, which I really liked. But we have like this. It's like we're giving Alfred bad guys to contend with, not like rogues gallery like Batman villains, but just still like it's basically Alfred building a small business and being kind of like an A-team kind of fixer sort of thing, and that aspect of it's kind of fun, but it's like, how far can we really go with this? And I don't know, it's kind of a thin premise, and the only interesting part of the premise is like, okay, so we see how Alfred met the Waynes, so that
Oh,
basically met, well, I guess Martha Kane and Thomas Wayne, how he met how he kind of got Bruce's parents there. That's essentially the sell of watching further beyond season one, but it's
fair enough.
I don't know. Look, it's okay, but Gotham Knights is terrible.
All right. Okay, so my mystery show, Dragon, it is in fact Peacemaker.
Hey, that's what I thought. I'm glad.
Yep, yep. And it's fantastic.
Yeah, you liked it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say out of all the James Gunn superhero stuff, so like the Guardians of the Galaxy movies plus the Suicide Squad, this is probably the lowest tier, but that's honestly just because of the nature of like what we're dealing with here, where we're dealing with like a bunch of Black Ops guys as opposed to like super colorful out of this world characters. I will say, Dragon, the character that really surprised me, and I want to see more of this actor now, given Guardians, is Mern.
Yeah.
I love how that twist played out, where at first you're just like, what is with this guy's acting style? And then it's like, then his acting style makes total sense given the twist. I'm like, oh, that's great. I don't know. That guy's on a roll, man. I really want to see more of him. John Cena is just fucking lovable as all hell in this show. I mean, he's just a big teddy bear, and it's definitely like the most emotionally complex that I've ever seen him be. I do think a couple of the characters are a little bit like, I want to make this clear. There's no bad character. There's nobody in the show that I dislike at all. Vigilante is a little Deadpool light. I don't know. I'm not. I wasn't great. Vigilante's humor was a little hit or miss for me. Let me put it that way. I love I love the heart of Vigilante as a character, but I think some of the actual writing and humor with him could be a little much. I wish they would have done a little bit more with Judo Master, especially considering how memorable his little bit at the end of the opening credits is, where he literally like leaps into Peacemaker's arms. Eagly is amazing.
Well, and water is wet, Tiki. I mean,
I know, right? I mean, I love the payoff of like, I saw a man hug an eagle. I love that. Generally speaking, I do think like, frankly, I think James Gunn is better suited for movies than he is for TV, but what is there is good. Like, I think the writing is there, the arcs are there. Of course, Robert Patrick, memorable villain for sure. Very memorable. As soon as I saw the cow dragon, I was like, oh, that is like the most James Gunn thing to have ever James Gunned. So yeah, overall, like I said, probably not quite at the same level as the Guardians movies or the Suicide Squad, but I will say just this alone, it definitely elevates the Suicide Squad for me. Like, I definitely, like, as soon as I finish this, I wanted to rewatch the Suicide Squad, and of course, it adds a ton of context to Peacemaker's character. It just really, I love when different movies and shows can do that. Like I kind of like went on about that with X and Pearl last year, how those two movies kind of complemented each other. So yeah, really interesting. All right. What's up next, Dragon?
all right. Next up is See It Loud: The History of Black TV. Black television.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, this is I've mentioned this sort of thing before. This is like sort of like a thing like CNN would do, like the history of television sort of thing, where they go through kind of the eras in sitcoms or the eras in like basically the eras in television history and stuff. And yeah, this is I don't know if this I don't know if I can't remember if it actually said CNN at the top or not, because this might have been I think they got this from like the Discovery merger on HBO Max. I think that's how this kind of ended up being on there. But yeah, this is it's a cool exploration of how media has evolved, but from the black experience, which kind of so again, it's kind of interesting having seen a show kind of like this, and we've kind of touched on it there, but seeing the full thing like about this, and each episode is a different genre, where it's like there's an episode about sitcoms, and there's about dramas, and then
Well, that's
reality shows, and then like black sci-fi, and
uh-huh.
like and the one you wrote, there's comedy specials and shows. So they talk about Chappelle and Key and Peele and everything, so all that's there, and they kind of talk about
I like
like
that
the
they
Jordan.
sorted by genre. That's definitely a lot more compelling to me than just doing like a timeline.
Yeah, yeah. So that's how. So each one's just by
Uh-huh.
they cover multiple decades within the genres. So they kind
Yeah,
of cover the
yeah.
evolution per genre. So like Jordan Peele's covered in the sci-fi one.
Uh-huh.
Also, Luke Cage. They talk about Luke Cage.
I'm Luke Cage.
Exactly. But yeah, yeah. So it was. It's kind of it's a little reminiscent of some of the, like that horror noir documentary they have. Where they kind of went through like the black, the black experience in horror movies and how it's kind of evolved, kind of mixed with a little bit of "Am I Black Enough for You," which was the critic talking about his experience through like the evolution of black players in film. So it's a little bit like that, mixed with one of the CNN documentaries. So it was cool, it was informative, and again the presentation and how they sectioned it off was pretty solid, man. It was a good watch.
No, I really like that that sectioning off, because usually when it comes to stuff like this, it's kind of just like, it goes chronologically, and it's like, all right, we gotta eat the vegetables, which is like the early stuff that I don't have a lot of nostalgia for, to get to the main course. So I do
Well,
like
yeah,
yeah.
sorry, I was gonna say, yeah, it's cool, like looking back on things, just seeing how different, like with a modern context, and we're looking back on it. Like for example, they talk about Family Matters, and Carl Winslow was a cop, and there was like an episode of Family Matters where it was like they were breaching on some very relevant issues. Where Carl Winslow, being a guy who wears the badge, was like questioning if his son deserved to be pulled over,
Uh-huh.
and it was a big deal in the writers' room when they did that. There was like a lot of there's a lot of fights going on about that episode, and of course, seeing where we're at now, it's like yeah, so it's really informative.
Sure, sure. All right. Okay, couple notes on Peacemaker here. Kogia says, I really like John Cena's performance as the title character and the wild intro. The intro, Dragon, it's easily like, it's one of those intros where you can never skip it. Like, that
Yeah.
skip button might as well just not exist for that intro.
Just the fact they're all dead serious while they're doing this
It's
incredibly.
so good. It's so fucking good.
I mean, let me ask you, we don't have to spell it out for the folks who may not have seen it, but Tiki, how perfect is the ending of the first season?
Well, no, that's the thing, though. Gunn always endings.
I just
Always.
Tiki, I will seriously, I will watch just that ending. I keep going back to the ending on Peacemakers to watch that beautiful last
It's
shot, just how
perfect.
flawed.
It's a perfect last shot. I agree.
God, with the song
I
choice and
thought that I
everything.
thought literally the last shot in all of the Guardians movies were perfect as well.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Otiki, I'm the opposite. I love these kind of things when they talk about the early stuff and seeing I'm not saying that's bad, Richard's Fictions. I'm just saying the separating it into genres is an interesting kind of change of pace as far as the format goes. All right. Let's see. Richard's Victim says, I agree that Vigilante is hit or miss, but that prison scene is all I need to love him. Yeah, I mean, he's definitely got lovable moments for
Well,
sure.
let me tell you one thing about Vigilante, and I wonder if you may have, I don't know if this occurred to you or not. I don't know if it was just me or what, but Freddie Struma, the actor who plays Vigilante, you look at him and like when we see him with the glasses and everything, I always got the vibe that that's James Gunn obviously putting a lot of himself in these things. I always felt like that's Vigilante is kind of like the wilder years of James Gunn, like the Wilder
I
Outcast
could kind of
early
see
years.
that, yeah.
Like basically, the Vigilante scene feels like young James Gunn to me.
All right, Robert Patrick gave the best performance. He was very intimidating. I haven't seen
I
T2, but I'm
loved
going
him.
to assume he was great in that. Yeah, well, yeah, T2 is what made his career. Yeah.
He was so good.
Also, Dragon, randomly, he was the dad in Bridge to Terabithia, and he killed it in that too. All right. Okay, so let's see. One Piece. Yes, One Piece. My name is Monkey D. Luffy, and I'm gonna be king of the pirates. Dragon, this show's fucking delightful. It's like Pirates of the Caribbean mixed with Wachowski's Speed Racer, and I love it. Here's the thing, though. I have not. I literally know so little about One Piece that the first time that Luffy stretched, it was genuinely a surprise. Like, that's how little I know about One Piece. All I know about is that it's the guy with the straw hat and he wants to be the king of the pirates. I knew the king of the pirates thing, but that was about all I knew. Like, because I remember 4Kids would use that king of the pirates thing in the same way that they would use the gotta catch 'em all. You know, it was basically like the catchphrase. But this this show is very stylized. It's cast incredibly well. I'm gonna say this right now, Dragon. I tried watching the anime. Frankly, I think this Monkey D. Luffy is a lot more likable. The way that this guy is cast, his delivery, his screen presence is a lot more likable than the anime version. I just think this guy is he's just incredibly wholesome. Just the whole idea that, like, you know, he very earnestly wants to be king of the pirates, but he's not going to be a bad guy to get there. It's just a very lovable character, and I think all the characters are lovable. I do think that this kind of the only drawback this has is the fact that because the anime is so dense, like I think there's like 1,000+ episodes of the anime at this point. Really, this whole first season is basically just like a getting the crew together season. Like, that is essentially the plot. And, like, for example, we have Sanji the cook, and he's a great character. Like, he's kind of like this suave kind of ladies man character who has a dream of, like, finding this island that's filled with, like, all the ingredients that a chef could ever want. You know, so he's got that passion mixed with the suaveness. But he's not really introduced until like episode 5 out of 8, you know? So it's like, so I kind of feel like the one drawback this show has is that by the time the characters are all set up and ready to go, the season's over. And really the first arc with Arlong, the pirate shark guy, like, I'm not really sure if that guy's supposed to be like a more main antagonist of the anime, or if he was basically like the first arc of the anime, or what. So overall, I know they're getting a season 2. It definitely feels incomplete so far, but I really like what I've seen, and I'll definitely watch more of it. And frankly, as far as live action anime adaptations go, this is probably the best one that there's ever been, and it's not even really close, frankly. And just the vibe, man, just the set pieces, the costume design, the CGI, it is very heightened and very animated. Like I said, I kind of compare it to Wachowski's Speed Racer, but it's a little less CG heavy than that, but it's still kind of like in that same kind of style. So yeah, Richard's Victim says, I'm looking forward to season 2 just to see the crew fully together from the start and see how they are as a team. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, because season 1, like I said, it really is just like, that is essentially the plot of season 1, is getting the crew fully intact. So, you know, it can only go up from here, I think. Robert Patrick, that alum from this 3D animated movies about flies who are at the moon. Wait, what? What? Is this a thing, Monkey? Is this a real thing? How is this not just like a fever dream parody of Space Chimps?
I think I heard about this thing.
Have you really? Oh my god!
Yeah, I can't for the life of me. I can't remember anything about it.
I mean, Space Chimps was a ridiculous premise for a movie. Dragon,
I remember.
Fly Me to the Moon.
I remember the Space Chimps, but I do remember at least like a Fly Me, because I love Sinatra. I think they probably used that. I don't know if they used that song in the trailer or not. I don't know.
All right, fair enough. Richard's Victim says part of the reason is because the original manga writer was part of the series. I mean, yeah, that'll do it for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Dragon, let's see what's next.
All right. Next, let's see. Okay, next, Evil, seasons 2 and 3.
Is this the Mike Coulter CBS show?
Yes.
Okay. The most generic name ever.
Yeah. Well, I didn't name it, so I don't have to tell you there. So, anyway, so Evil. This is yes, this was on CBS. I saw the first season when it was airing way back, and a few years. It's been a while because they kind of shifted networks. I think it started in 2019, so I think that's when the first season was. It was shown on CBS and it didn't get canceled, but it got moved from CBS to Paramount Plus, which is why I was unable to watch it for a while until I very recently acquired, at least for the time being, Paramount Plus. So now able to watch it finally, and I had no idea it went to 3 seasons, so I was in for quite a surprise there. And the reason I timed it for this month was, honestly, I'm using it as kind of preparation for The Exorcist.
Oh, okay.
To some degree, because one of meaning to watch it, but two of there's a little bit of the scary religious kind of stuff. So I don't know. Anyway,
I mean, frankly, I think The Exorcist is going to go a little bit harder than a CBS Prime procedural.
Well, that's the thing that seasons 2 and 3 are uncensored because they're not on network TV anymore, so they go in actually a little dark.
Oh, okay.
So that's the thing. So season 2 is the round up of season 2 is it's the fallout of the trauma, and I do recommend this show for you, Tiki. I think it's a procedural with teeth that you'd like. It's a procedural that's unlike most procedurals that you'll see. I mean, particularly seasons 2 and 3, once they don't have the network thing, they go really full tilt with how dark things can go. But still, season 1 still I even think will kind of intrigue you. Well, for the main reason being Michael Emerson's in. Michael Emerson plays the bad guy in this.
Fuck me.
He's really good too. He's like what?
I said Michael Emerson is my weakness.
Seriously, Tiki, you would love him, and he's having so much fun as the bad guy too, because he's playing this really demented, creepy guy who's working for Satan.
Oh God!
It's like a whole thing where he's in league with he's basically I guess he's technically a Satanist. They kind of make fun of the whole Satanist thing in this. It's like a whole thing where he learns about this fake Satanist cult and he gets really offended by it. So,
okay, God damn it, that sounds delightful.
There's this big awesome reveal in the first season where this is the guy who he's kicking the hornet's nest and watching the evil happen. That's kind of what this guy just enjoys bad stuff and making our hero's life miserable. So there's kind of almost there's a vaguely reverse Flash kind of element in terms of how petty and just evil this guy is. So anyway, so Leland Townsend is that character's name. So he does bad stuff in the first season, and season 2 is the fallout of the traumas that he's inflicted on our trio of characters. There's a murder that happens, there was an attack, and then someone has a religious awakening. So that's kind of what happens to our trio of characters. It's a fun procedural with kind of an X-Files vibe. The idea that some things are actual religious phenomenon, other things are just things that made to look like religious phenomenon. And yeah, so you have again, as I said, you got Emerson, who's gold. You have Asif Mendui or Mendai. I'm butchering his name, Mr. Assis from Spider-Man 2. Go that guy.
Of course, yeah.
He's Ben the Magnificent is what they call him in the show. Ben the Magnificent.
That's funny because Michael Emerson's character on Lost is named Ben.
I know. So that's the thing. So Ben the Magnificent is he basically the main girl, Kristen. She has 4 daughters, and they all love this guy, and they nickname him Ben the Magnificent because he's a delightful kind of tech guy on the team. Anyway, so Mike Coulter is in pursuit of becoming a priest throughout season 2. Let's see. They have the framing devices are the episode title runner is great. Each season has a different episode title runner. So season 2 is this demonic pop-up book, and every episode's A is for this, B is for this. So Z is for zombies, C is for cops, E is for elevators, and it has something to do with the phenomenon, paranormal activity. There's almost you remember that Shyamalan movie about the elevator, right?
Yeah, it wasn't a Shyamalan directed movie. He produced it. Yeah.
Well, there's something kind of akin to that elevator thing in season 2. Anyway, so Townsend, hilariously, in season 2, he, oh god, Townsend basically gets an exorcism in season 2. He wants an excuse to be around the character so he can needle him and just kind of like make him suffer. So it's like David Acosta, who is the Mike Coulter character, is trying to become a priest, so he has to help a guy with an exorcism. And that guy's Leland Townsend, who he hates with a burning passion, he's like, hey, David, how's it going? He just can't stand him. And he has to exercise him, and he's hamming up and pretending to be excised, and it's like a whole process just so he can get in good with the Catholic Church and get under his skin. So there's a lot of fun there. Anyway, so he does something unspeakable to the main girl character, Kirsten's mom, which I'll leave it at that. He does something unspeakable to her in the first season, does something terrible to her in the second season that's nightmare fuel. And then season 3 essentially is now David's a priest. And so you have like this new character and this nun character named Sister Andre, who's amazing, and she can see all the demonic stuff that's in the show, and she's like giving Leland Townsend the business. And like they're doing a lot of cool, like really heady stuff, like finding out the weight of the human soul. And Wally Shawn's in the season as like another priest. It's like the Vatican has like secret agents. It's a whole thing, man.
It honestly sounds pretty fun.
Yeah. And something unspeakable happens to Kristen's husband. Oh boy. Anyways, worth checking out. That's all I'm going to say. Moving on.
Okay. Okay, let's see. Sorry. Okay, Gamera Rebirth. Yeah. Okay, so I checked this one out because I was really pleasantly surprised by the Skull Island show that dropped on Netflix a couple months ago. Like, that one was seriously good. Like, to the point where I'm genuinely kind of craving a second season of it. This Dragon, it's a little, I don't know. It's a little much. Weirdly, I think the closest comparison I have for this is weirdly like, it's kind of like Digimon, which you would not think for a Gamera show, but it's got a weird focus on like children who get caught up in the middle of this like government testing facility, and then Gamera, like, you know, they're essentially like they're essentially like just kind of like there as Gamera happens, like, you know, like the nuclear fallout that creates Gamera. And it's, I don't know. I don't like the animation style, honestly. I like the animation style in Skull Island a lot more, because it was pretty close to like the Legend of Korra. I think it probably might have been the same animation studio. This one, it's like weirdly like CG. Again, I don't like the focus on the kids. Gamera himself looks cool. There's some cool action sequences. But overall, I found this one kind of like a slog to get through. I mostly just kind of watched through it just because I needed. You know, it was kind of like a filler sort of thing. So I wouldn't recommend it. I would recommend Skull Island, though. Has a great Mae Whitman character at the forefront of that. So, yeah. Okay. All right. Next up for you.
All right. I'm going to go through this one real quick. Murdaugh Murders: A Southern Scandal, Season 2. So, I mean, look, not as impressive as the first season. This is about, you know, the whole Alex Murdaugh thing where it's this, basically, essentially a family that was in good legal standing with the community. I think they come from like I forget if I think Murdaugh's father was a judge, and they kind of go over that here in season 2 a bit. And essentially, the son was kind of involved in like some kind of careless kind of partying that got a poor girl killed, and they covered it up, and people weren't happy about it. And then a few days later, well, I guess time passes, and then basically the son and wife of Alex Murdaugh get killed, and that's it's not really, let me put it this way, it's not a big mystery. There's not a lot of doubt that's going on here. But yeah, it's it's it pales in comparison to something like Making a Murder, which is actually kind of compelling. But this is basically the only reason I watched this, if I'm being frank, is um, my grandfather. He was again, he was a student of history and stuff, and he loved like the trials and stuff. He was watching the Depp versus Heard trial when it was happening, because again, it was like, because he was fascinated by the OJ thing. So like seeing the televised trial and everything, he would even watch like even like traffic court kind of stuff. He loved like the courtroom stuff. So yeah, he was following this because it was televised and it was like on YouTube and stuff. So and just the whole like the historic events and stuff. So he because of that, I kind of owed it to myself, because I watched the first part of it and I recommended it to him, and I just felt like I should watch the second part of it, and I did. And it's I don't think it's as good as the first half, and it's just pretty much matter of fact. Like it opens kind of strong. Like we see the body cam footage of the cops on the scene, which I thought was kind of a good way to start things off. But that's pretty straightforward. Like, okay, guys, he's pretty guilty, and we're gonna throw the book at him. That's case closed. 3 episodes.
All right.
So nothing really to sing home about. But this next thing I'm going to tell you about, you don't have anything next, right? I'm not crazy.
No.
Okay, here's the real thing to tell you about. RoboDoc, the creation.
But I need to watch the actual movie first.
I know you do. You Philistine, watch it immediately. But yes, that's the thing. So originally I was shocked that this was turned into a series, because I remember this thing was announced and it was supposed to be a movie originally, but because the project took so long and they kept getting pretty much everyone involved in RoboCop who's still around to be in this thing, it became such a big project. It became so long, it was not feature length anymore. It had to be like a 4-part series, which essentially is the length of. I mean, I think the first and last parts are a little over an hour, so a little over an hour plus an hour segment each, and in between. Pretty widespan, but that's the thing. This is like the most. I mean, I've told you before about like the horror movie stuff. You've watched like
yeah.
This is not quite that, but this is more like, what if you took one of those movies, but you went through almost scene by scene?
Right.
That's essentially what this is. The most in-depth examination of a classic ever, man, and it's wonderful. This is like it's in 4 parts on Screenbox. It will be coming to Blu-ray like this month, so it's it's definitely you can rent it now if you want on Amazon, so it's available like to get now or to get on Screenbox or however you want to try it. Screenbox is like kind of a rip-off of Shudder, but it's.
Oh really? Oh wow!
Essentially, but it just only has more exclusive kind of documentaries.
That's what we need is another streaming service, another niche streaming service.
But trust me, Steve, this is something I'm going to be buying on the Blu-ray eventually. But yeah, this is but yeah, man, it's in depth. I knew parts of it already because the RoboCop DVD release had like a pretty good features on things, but this gets into more nitty gritty. It gives you stuff you had no idea about, like deleted sequences and like how we arrived at certain things. And again, you have like people reflecting on things years later and like how close RoboCop really got it. There was this Tiki. I'm going to hype you up on one part of this documentary. It's all the way in, I think, in part 4, so you got to watch it. There's a story about Oreos, which is priceless.
Really?
Peter Weller, basically Peter Weller was having kind of a diva day on the set, and he was all about the Oreos, and it's crazy. Oh god, the way the story's told is just it's probably I don't want to spoil it for you, but anyway, this thing's very delightful. It's just RoboCop was just it just really reaffirms that RoboCop really was one of those like classics, and it was like one of those almost perfect films. I mean, in my estimation, I'd say it's a perfect movie. In terms of like it's just thing where like not a moment of screen time is wasted. Like we use every part of the buffalo. I mean, the only regret I have on this documentary itself is that it doesn't. I really wanted at the end to talk about RoboCop 2 and the franchise of RoboCop, but because RoboCop 2 is the fascinating. I really desperately want a sequel to this where they talk about RoboCop 2. I really do, because no one ever talks about RoboCop 2 for good reason, but still, I just want to know about it, man. That's the thing, because RoboCop 2 is the divisive one, because some people like it, and there is good stuff in that movie.
But it's like Wayne's World 2?
No.
Okay, because I actually kind of like Wayne's World 2 a little bit better than Wayne's World 1.
It's
Honestly,
kind
that's
of hard.
my
I mean,
application.
Tiki, it's kind of hard to see because it has like like the action elements are good in RoboCop 2, but the thing is, RoboCop 2 is a lot darker. It's a lot more Frank Millery,
Oh, okay, okay.
and I mean, not quite Dark Knight Returns Frank Miller. So that's
I'm
the
gonna
thing.
wager a guess and say it's not quite All-Star Batman and Robin, Frank Miller
Well,
either. Oh,
well,
really?
I mean
Really?
that's it's all
That
Tiki.
bad?
Well, Tiki, that's my point. It's on the line, man. I can't.
Oh
That's the
shit.
thing. That's the
That's pretty
fascinating.
bad, Dragon.
I mean, Tiki, that's the fascinating thing about the movie. It is like right smack dab
Uh-huh.
on the
Uh-huh.
line because there's good elements, there's missed opportunities, and there's stuff that's not great.
Right.
But it's not RoboCop 3, which is none of that's great. You know?
Yeah.
So that's the thing. It's like right on the line where it's like, I mean, this is kind of they have Peter Weller coming back. It's kind of in tune with RoboCop, but it's not as smart or as perfect as that first movie. But it's got interesting ideas, but we don't do enough with it. And no one ever talks about it. I want to know more about it. So that's my only regret. Is like we pay lip service to all the other media stuff for like less than 5 minutes. It's like, and there's RoboCop 2 and 3 and the games and the show, and they don't even talk about the reboot. So yeah. So that's the only regret I have on it. Otherwise, I really liked it. First off, I tell you watch RoboCop, and then I say watch this.
All right, fair enough. Okay, so now we have gotten to catch up. All right. The Flash, Dragon. I finally got to the Flash. Oh boy. So, Dragon, I actually really, really liked it.
Yeah.
For the first 2/3.
Okay.
No, honestly, for real, honestly, surprisingly, I really like this movie. Might be my favorite Ben Affleck Batman stuff. For as little as he has to do in this movie, I really like the kind of like reluctant friendship that he has with Barry, and in like the little bit of screen time we get from him. I like the setup. I like the the time travel stuff. Honestly, this is going to be controversial. I know it's a controversial part of the movie. I really like the two different Barrys. Mostly just because I was actually genuinely pretty impressed with the special effects there. You know, the way that it was pretty seamlessly able to be the same actor in, twice. But thematically I really like it. Of course, all the stuff with the mother is really compelling. Honestly, Dragon, the movie kind of falls apart right around the point that we actually get to not Ben Affleck, to Keaton. Keaton is good, but Dragon, honestly, like once we get to him, the movie kind of starts to fall apart because it becomes less about the Flash's story and more about just, the nostalgia and the member berries and the spectacle. And that last fight scene is pretty awful, Dragon. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, those cameos, it's cool. It's cool as it is to see Nick Cage Superman. I mean, it'd be a little cooler if it wasn't just a CG effect. The Christopher Reeves moment is just as horrifying as I thought it would be. The George Clooney cameo at the end was fun. I'll give you that. It was a good little subversion. But that being said, I did think I am one of those people that thinks the end of the movie and how the story resolves, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, well, what lesson did we really learn from all of this then? Really? So yeah, it's like I would say out of Blue Beetle, Shazam, and this, I would say it's by far the best of the three this year. It was the one that I got the most out of, but it's still not really great. Like it's in the upper half of the DCEU, like the Snyderverse DCEU, but like that's not really saying a whole hell of a lot. That's not really a great batting average. So I liked it better than I thought I would, but it does definitely fall apart by the end for sure. Like I wish the time travel stuff would have been a little bit more consistent. The Flash is the best superhero movie since Joker. This would be a controversial take, but I think Batman has more good, memorable moments in The Flash than the Batman had. What? No, I can't sign off on that, Kokios. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I like the Batman stuff in here, but like to say that he had more memorable Batman stuff than all of the Dark Knight trilogy, I can't sign off on that. I'm sorry. Respect though, because that is a piping hot take, my friend. Kokios, just to be fair, I do really respect your passion for this movie. I really do. Dragon, I forget what you thought of this. Am I kind of like lining up on your opinions?
I mean, look, with the Flash movie, I mean, I enjoyed. Sorry, I enjoyed the movie when he's in the costume and then seeing kind of like like characters like Keaton Batman and what we're doing with Supergirl, and I know a lot of like. I liked a lot of it. I just could not stand Young Barry. I really couldn't. I couldn't stand Young Barry.
That's fair.
I was a little on the fence of him already in Act 1 before, like he's like when he's playing straight man to Young Barry. That's one
Although
thing.
I will say, I think the best moment is when the current Barry kind of gives him a piece of his mind. With the whole like, "Don't you talk about our mom like that" scene.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing is that I did think that the writing between the two of them was rather good.
I mean, that's the thing. Ultimately, Flash is a movie where I think the title character gets a little lost or takes place second banana in his own movie, and oddly to himself, which is really. but that's the thing.
Also, I felt like how they did, like they basically did the Lightyear Zurg thing by making him the evil speedster. I mean,
that was the other big problem I had, where it's like it feels like we should have actually done Reverse Flash, and we didn't. And I want to be clear. I'm glad Reverse Flash wasn't him, which would have been stupid. But still, it just feels like if someone's going to interrupt him and zap him when he's trying to run back home and gum things up,
how cool would it have been if Kavanaugh was the person that we brought in from the CW verse to reprise their role?
On one hand, I want that desperately. On the other hand, it's like, do I want to sully Kavanaugh?
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Oh man, I don't know. But that thing is honestly just when I don't know, it's the Flash stuff when he's outside. Like I love the scene where he is saving all those babies at the hospital. I know a lot of people.
Okay, surprisingly, that scene worked way better than I thought it would when I first heard about it.
I think that's an insanely good setup for a Flash.
I agree.
That's a great showcase of the powers and all that.
I really like the stuff with at the beginning when he's trying to get the food. I really like how that kind of plays into the power set.
But that's what I'm saying. The awkward Barry stuff, even before we get to the young Barrys, like it's like he and Iris don't really have much chemistry. Like, why doesn't he have any?
Iris is like a non-factor in this movie, basically.
Like, why doesn't he have any food in the fridge? I mean, if he's going to eat all like that, I don't know. It's like stuff like it's like those people at work aren't really friends, and I think I know they're work friends or whatnot, but it's like they don't really care for him at all. It's like, what's the point? I don't know. It just I don't know. There's a lot of this Barry out of the costume just kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and just pairing him up with his younger self, and he's losing like a tooth just for comedy, which is like some gag someone thinks is funny, which is like not funny. And that's our last shot of the movie. Like a lot of that's dumb to me, but again, like, I'm going to that movie. I'm living for the Keaton Batman stuff. Like we're having some great moments with him in that. I know a lot of it's memorabilia. I'll admit, like like you want to get nuts.
There is no reason for him to say if do you want to get nuts.
I agree.
There's no reason for that.
I have no compunction with that. All I'm saying is like when he, when he suits up and like he's saying like try not to die, and he's like like how much do you weigh? Like he's doing all these moments. It's like okay.
I do like the idea of him being a Bruce Wayne who's retired from being Batman because Gotham doesn't have use for Batman. Like that in itself is an interesting concept.
Yeah, I mean, look, Keaton I don't think Keaton's ever not delivered. Really, I mean, Keaton usually brings it, and just him returns role. I don't think he returned for like half-heartedly. I think he returned to like if I'm going to play it, I'm going to I think he did bring something unique to it. And I think the big takeaway is like we're going to let Keaton play a Batman who can actually turn his head. Which I don't know, like seeing him like do those, seeing him fight like the Arkham Batman is like something in a million years. Like the only issue I had with that Batman was like, why couldn't we give him a yellow belt? It would have been that hard. It's all we needed to do. Just give him a yellow belt. Anyway. So so the Flash I think is complicated. I like a lot of it, but it's still a little messy.
How would you rank the three movies, the three DC movies this year?
Okay, when you say so it's between
Blue
Shazam.
Beetle, Shazam, and this.
Okay, well, Blue Beetle is going to be at the bottom. I gotta be honest. I mean, I think Shazam 2 does. I think it does play well, just not great. So I don't know. I think Shazam 2 is a more cohesive and better movie. So I think Shazam 2 is probably going to be at the top, and then this. But it's a guess. You know, it's.
Okay, fair enough.
But then again, you have Keaton Batman. Keaton Batman's the thing that's thrown my math off here. You know, it's like. That's the thing. So it's hard to say, but I think Shazam is the more cohesive movie. It makes more sense.
All right. Okay, next up for you.
Mystery movie time.
All right.
You ready?
Sure.
All right, Barbie, let's go party.
Oh. Okay. How do you see it? It's not on HBO yet.
Well, no, I saw it it was still in theaters, and I saw it during Labor Day. So.
Oh, nice. Okay. Okay.
So yeah. So saw it Labor Day. So I saw the movie finally. I've been trying. Look, I've been trying to see Barbie. Unfortunately, the person I was going to see it with kept bailing on me, so I wasn't able to. And my friends apparently saw it without me. They didn't tell me. You know, so point being, I had tried to see Barbie, and there was no dice until this month. So seeing it, I get the hype, but I got some issues with the film. I get the hype. I love the production design. I love when we go to Barbie Land. I love see. That's what I'm enamored with, is seeing like all the ridiculous like Barbie toy logic just applied to like basically being at scale with the Barbies in the world.
Dragon.
Yeah. So all of that was delightful to me. So I think for me, it's like the Barbie movie is kind of like a progressive thing where Act 1 is probably the strongest, and then as we go forward, it's like we're losing just a little bit of momentum each act. You know, it's fun seeing him in the real world, but you're kind of realizing, man, we don't really have a lot of material to play with here, and we literally have.
But you admit the real world stuff is definitely less central to the movie than that trailer made you think, right?
Agreed. Yeah. Well, I don't know. There's a big plot point. They need to go to the real world, Tiki.
Well, yeah, but we still spend a lot of time in Barbie Land.
Okay, you're right. Okay, let me put it this way. What is not advertised in trailers that we have like the 3-act return where we actually go back to Barbie Land for a significant chunk of the movie. So you're right. Okay, in that regard, you're right. You're right. We're not there for the whole for half and half. So at least there's that. So okay, I'll give you that. So at least in that respect, yeah, sure. So I don't hate the real world stuff. It just feels like we're starting to break some reality too. Of like we have that really silly chase scene, which is almost a Scooby-Doo chase. Which I mean, it's cute, but it's like I don't know. We're kind of stretching some.
I love the method for getting to Barbie Land.
Yeah, that is great, though. I'll give you that.
How straight it's played, too. Just the fact that it's just, accepted that that's what you got to do.
So the movie, I think, is tremendously well cast with, Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling. It's just, I really don't like making Ken the bad guy in Act 3. I really don't like that.
You see, I don't know. I don't really read it as him being the bad guy per se.
Well, I know he's not like a bad guy. I don't like putting him in the position of being the antagonist.
Some people read "I'm Just Ken" as a villain song, and I'm like, that is.
No, I know. No, I'm Ken is not a villain song. I agree with you there. It's just that I don't just even incidentally just making him into just doing a whole. It just feels like we're going really preachy in the third act, where it's going to be a thing where. Okay, so Ken has learned the ways of man. He's brought it back, but it's not sort of a clarification matter. It's like, no, Ken is he's stolen. He's taken the Barbie land for himself, and I don't think we're playing it. We kind of hint at it, but we don't really go the way I was hoping it was going to go. Where we had a really great cutting moment where Ken threw it back in Barbie's face that I don't have a place to live, and you should have treated me nicer in Act 1. I'm not I wish Ken had almost a little bit of the Toy Story Ken thing, where Ken has a complex about being an accessory, a purse with legs, and I really wish we dug in that. It's right on the surface, it's right there, and we just don't vocalize it. We don't say it. We don't say I'm an accessory. We don't say that, which I think would have really helped. And it just feels like Ken is just he's become essentially a dictator in the Barbie land. With malice or not, it just feels a little mean spirited. I don't know. I mean,
for me, I think America Ferrera's monologue was the thing that got a little bit too political.
That's what I'm saying. Like Act 3 is all about that, though. It
Hmm.
just feels like we go back to Barbie Land. Like, okay, I get that Ken bringing back what he learned and kind of throwing Barbie Land off is one thing, but it just I don't know. It just feels really iffy for me how Act 3 goes. And the big thing is that it feels like Greta Gerwig wanted to be like really like like I don't know, subversive is the right word. She wanted to be really irreverent with things. She's like, let's just do a Barbie movie. It's gonna like one celebrate Barbie, but also get into like like what are we? Barbie's always been kind of a symbol for things as the times have gone by, and we've kind of recontextualized Barbie. And I get what she's going for, but I think she wrote her. I think she and Baumbach wrote themselves into a corner with Act 3. It's like, well, where do we go from here? What does Barbie want? Well, you never really talked about what Barbie wants because Barbie, it's like we have the rules of the world, which I really like that. Okay, so basically the person who owns the Barbie is projecting themselves onto the toy or how they play with the toy. That makes sense. That's a logical logic akin to what
Hmm.
we're used to with this sort of thing. But then it's like, okay, so then we're getting sentience with the Barbie. So what does Barbie want? So I don't buy at all that Barbie can do what she does at the end of that movie based on how we set things up at the start there. It's like,
I will go on record and say I'm not a huge fan of how it ends. I
and
think it's
I hate
really
ending on the cringy joke.
bad.
Ending on a cringy joke is okay. Greg Gerwig got her
Yeah,
laugh from there. It just feels like it's a dumb. I don't know.
yeah, I wasn't crazy about that either.
It feels like what did we learn at the end of the day here? It's like
No,
Barbie.
Dragon. Honestly, I feel you. Honestly, like as time goes on, I'm kind of like a little less like it's got a lot of good stuff in it. Like you said, the production design. I think the cast is really on
I think the
point.
movie's all aesthetic at the end of the day, man. I
Uh
think the
huh.
aesthetic's good and the initial, essentially the performance and the aesthetic's good, but story wise, I don't know what Gerwig and Baumbach were thinking with the third act.
I feel you. I feel you. Honestly, I think Will Ferrell has one of my biggest laughs in the third act, which I kept quoting to Rohit when we did the spoiler cast, which is when America Ferrera goes to him about the idea for like I believe it's just the every woman Barbie, and she's just like, "Sir, I have an idea," and he just looks at her dragon like so straight faced, and he's just like, "Tell me your dreams, child." For some reason that just cracks me the fuck up. I don't
That
know.
was good. That was good.
Just Will Ferrell, just in general, just the whole like, I have a lot of Jewish friends.
I really, I still really wish they tied into the Lego movie more directly.
Oh come on! If they would have, you mean like actually had him be like in canon the character from the Lego
I
movie?
mean, Tiki. I mean, it's right there, and it's a toy movie. And he's dressed
That would
the
have never
exact.
happened.
Tiki, if he had a red tie, he'd be the same character.
Oh god! All right, all right.
Okay, I'm just saying,
Uh,
like, you know.
Honestly, my favorite scene in the whole movie was the like everyone's going nuts about I'm Just Ken, but I really really love the other musical number that the Kens have, the I Want to Push You Around song.
Hmm.
I really love how that's staged. First of all, I have been the guy who's like, sung the acoustic guitar song to a girl, really cringy. So very eye-opening. Like every guy I think can kind of like relate to being that. And just the way that it's shot, I love the way that the Barbies manipulate the situation to their advantage. So that is another kind of like I think frankly I think the musical sequences are the thing that saved the third act for me. I think other than the musical sequences, I agree with you that the third act is a little bit of a mess. But all right, okay. Also, Captain Logan hated it apparently.
Yeah.
That's a shame.
Hmm.
All right. Okay. So bottoms. Okay, Dragon. Believe it or not, here's my thing. This is I think Asteroid City is probably like objectively the better made film with like the more impressive sets and cast and everything, and it's like a deeper, more complex movie. But Bottoms is just so infinitely rewatchable, Dragon. I saw it twice in theaters this month. I want to see it again. The second time I saw it, it was literally like one of the quickest 90 minutes I have ever spent in a movie theater. Like the time just flew by. I fucking love this movie. So essentially, it's a teen comedy. Uh, Basically, it's pretty much a gender reversed Super bad, except it doesn't just take place over the course of one night. It takes place over a period of a few weeks, I think. The whole idea is that the lead characters are very, very painfully awkward and unself-aware lesbians in high school. And Dragon, much like Superbad, they want to get some before college, man. That's the goal. That's the goal. And essentially, they start a fight club, a female fight club, in the guise of a self-defense club, a self-defense class, in order to hook up with hot cheerleaders. That's literally the premise. And what I love about the movie, though, is that the movie's world is so fucking heightened. Like there are so many background gags. Like, for example, there's this one random football player who's just in a cage in the background of a classroom. They never acknowledge him, but he's in multiple scenes. And so there's all these different, like, really heightened, like the way that the school, like, literally worships the football players. And when I say worship, I mean it's basically like, you know how Friday Night Lights kind of has the whole, like, football is a religion thing. It's like that taken to the extreme in a comedic way. Let's see what else. I mean, just overall, the cast is frankly a lot of unknowns, but they're all just super likable. Every character, it's one of those movies where every character just has moments to shine. Just the laughs per minute ratio in this movie is just off the chain. Like I said, it's like, you know, it's not like an objectively, like, incredibly shot movie or anything, but the set design, the production design, the background details and gags are all there. They're all on point. Rachel Sennett, who first popped up on my radar in Bodies, Bodies, Bodies from last year. She was, like, by far the biggest standout of that movie. Dragon, she's the lead in this, and she's also going to be the lead in Shiva Baby, which I'll talk about in just a second, which is done by the same director. And oh my god, she is, like, quickly becoming one of my favorite actresses, man. She has such a screen presence to her. Yeah, Bottoms is pretty freaking fantastic. I honestly think it is my favorite movie of 2023. And like I said, the asterisk there is that Asteroid City is still, like, you know, like, objectively probably the better movie. But here's the thing, Asteroid City, Dragon, as you know, it's like that movie is very much like, I would not recommend Asteroid City to someone who's not already, like, knee deep in the Wes Anderson lexicon, right? Bottoms is a movie that I would recommend. You know, I certainly wouldn't recommend it to, like, the grandmas in the audience or anything like that. You know, like, you have to be of a certain age to appreciate it. Like, I honestly think I'm just on the line of being too old for it, but I do relate to it. And I did know people like this in high school, and it is exaggerated, but it's still relatable at the same time. So, yeah, I mean, this is definitely the movie that I can see myself rewatching over and over and over again from this year. And that, to me, is a big, like, when I'm trying to rank movies, big factor for me now. So, big highlight. All right, so The Machine, Dragon. I almost watched this, but I figured I'd let you see it first and kind of tell me what you thought. So,
yeah, so yeah, I've been waiting for this one, man. I was very eager to watch this because I've watched Bert Kreischer's stand up, and I think it's pretty funny. And the big stand up thing that drew me to him, and that probably draws everyone to Bert Kreischer, is the famous The Machine special, in which he ends that special by doing his machine bit, which essentially is well, as far as he tells the story, it's a real life story in which he kind of failed upward into taking this Russian language class, in which basically teacher needed to learn. Sorry, the teacher. I think it was like a student teacher, something like the teacher in order to have her class, she needed, like, to put bodies in chairs, and basically it's like he was like the last one in the class. Like, okay, look, because he basically thought it was like Spanish. He was going to sign up for Spanish. He ended up in Russian. This is like, okay, look, if you take this class, you don't have to do anything. I'll give you a C. All right, you can do whatever you want. I'll give you a C at the end of the day. So like, okay. So he basically learned no Russian at all, and he got a C through the class, and he basically ultimately got a minor in Russian because in doing so, he went on a trip to Russia, in which he basically buddied up with the Russian mafia.
Mm-hmm.
And in the sense that was a stand-up bit, and it's delightful, and I still recommend you listen to it. And this essentially is like
I'm
an
not sure I
adaptation.
have listened to it. I'm pretty sure you linked it to me.
Oh well, I did link it there. I don't know if you watched it though.
I did.
Oh well, there you go then. So yeah, this is basically an adaptation of that. He basically turned that premise into a movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fun time. Especially if you're a Crusher fan, you're gonna love it. I don't. As general, I mean, I don't know. It feels like, even if you haven't listened to the bit, I think it kind of like it recaps it internally at the top, and then literally when they were telling this main story of the film, it's basically the whole spine of the film is like Bert Kreischer today having to go back to Russia because of something that happened during that stand-up story. And it's like this thing. It's like, what if we add like a hair of drama to that flashback? And it's not really anything super fabricated. It's like, okay, what if because he felt bad because he had to rob his classmates with the Russian mob on the train. So like, what if we just played that honestly, like what was a little bit more of an aftermath of like, he kind of hurt some people's feelings when he did so, and what if he stole like an important item from one of the Russian passengers on the train to give us an action movie premise. So, I mean, aside from that, it's not really too embellished. It's really inventive in that respect. He and his father, who in real life, Crusher and his father, they have issues, and it's funny. His father, played by the wonderful Mark Hamill. So Mark Hamill is in this film, and he's great. And they're basically it's they're sent they're shanghaied into Russia, and then they have to they're basically in pursuit of like they're this lady is trying to reclaim her father's watch so she can inherit his empire. So admittedly, it's thin plotting wise in the whole pocket watch thing and the whole like retrieving the watch thing. So admittedly, it's an action movie but it's kind of self-referential. They know it's like not important at all. It's just Kreischer in there to for comedic shenanigans to take place. Like, I don't know, man. I rather enjoy it. It's a farce unequivocally as far as the plot goes, but the best way I can describe it is it's a cute adaptation of a stand-up bit, man. It's like, oh look, Bert made a movie and he went to Russia and Crusher said he had a great time making this movie, and it's like, it's like, what if Kevin Smith turned one of the evenings with into like he adapted into a movie almost, it's something kind of.
Don't tease me with that, Dragon. There's a lot of material to mine from there.
Well, someone's doing a biopic on Clerks, so.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. It's just that what I really want to see is the Prince one.
Yeah, I think we all do. Anyway, so again, we might see that movie one day, though, the actual documentary.
I know. That's the thing.
They've been saying it might be close to coming out, but since Prince is passing, but who knows? Anyway, so I think at the end of the day, what's really unique is that we actually do get to say, I think Kreischer accidentally kind of said some things about himself in this. Like, he had some vulnerable moments in this, and I think there's kind of like a self-reflective quality within the comedy, which I really appreciated. So I don't know, it's fun, it's a good time. It's not Yates, it's not reinventing the wheel, but it's got some laughs in there. And if you listen to the stand-up bit, I think you'd really enjoy it, which it seems like you did. I think you'd enjoy it.
Fair enough. All right, Shiva baby. So this movie is basically anxiety personified.
Oh.
Rachel Sennott is the lead character once again. She is going with her very Jewish family to essentially a Shiva is essentially like a week-long funeral thing. I'm not sure.
I know what the Shiva is, Dickie.
You know what a Shiva is? Okay. Yeah. So she's going to the Shiva with her family. Her family is just incredibly judgmental about her lifestyle. All they know about her lifestyle is that she dropped out of college, and they are incredibly judgmental about that. They don't know exactly what she does for a job, but they're about to find out, Dragon. Because it turns out that the man that she has been having sexual relations with for money, essentially, is at this Shiva. And yeah, social anxiety nightmares ensue, essentially. Um, Honestly, the most compelling part of this movie is the fact that this guy's wife and infant daughter are there as well. And the wife is actually super likable. And throughout the conversation and throughout the day, like, you know, like Rachel Sennett is basically trying to avoid the guy at all costs, but he is kind of trying to pursue her, much to the chagrin of the wife, and the wife is very much like picking up on the fact that something is going down between these two. It's an anxiety nightmare of a movie, Dragon. I don't think you would really like it. And it, like I said, it's done by the same guy who did Bottoms, or the same woman, I should say, not guy. I don't mean to like just use the term guy as a gender. Anyways, yeah, but I still it. Like I said, just it is very, very, very anxiety inducing. I mean, even the score is like anxiety inducing. Like, I don't know if you've seen 12 Years a Slave, but 12 Years a Slave does this thing with the score where it's like a violin being tuned very violently, and like throughout the whole movie you think that a string is going to snap on the violin score. This is like very similar. It's almost like kind of like a heartbeat in the form of a score that just gets more and more intense. And there is a panic attack at the end of this movie that is like super duper relatable, like way more relatable than, I don't know. I feel like panic attacks on film are kind of starting to become more of a like a mainstream thing. And frankly, I feel like the whole like Puss in Boots: The Last Wish has the most relatable panic attack ever put to screen is like people cite that so much it's almost become a meme at this point. But this is like a legit, like, no, I have been exactly where this character is at the end of this movie, like exactly. So yeah, I definitely look forward to seeing what else this director has up their sleeve, because between this and especially Bottoms, it's a hell of a 1-2 punch to start off their career with. So, all right, next up,
Living with Chucky. So yeah, this is a documentary, kind of retrospective documentary on the Chucky franchise.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, this is pretty much me confronting my demons with Chucky. You know, it's kind of it's behind the scenes only. I would not confront the actual film, but I will confront the making of Chucky.
I have never found Chucky scary. I'm sorry.
I know it's because I think it's just deep down because I love Toy Story. I think that's fundamentally. I think that's why. I just think it's just such a chilling
like
idea to me.
Enemy.
Yeah, I don't know. Plus, I read something really traumatizing back when I was a kid about it. Kind of, it's not important. Anyway, the fact is, yeah, I don't know. It's the idea of like like the toys coming to life and it being a horrifying experience is just very. I don't
We
know.
already have that movie in PG form. It's called Small Soldiers.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like that's like the only the Small Soldiers is one thing, and that's what I'm saying. Small Soldiers is already like on a line, but we have good guys that kind of fight them. That's the difference. You know, it all turns out fine in the end. You know, we don't have anyone actually getting killed. Anyway, so yeah, this is interesting. This I was going in this expecting kind of an abridged version of the kind of like the Nightmare on Elm Street documentary, and like the massive thing where it kind of goes through all the films.
Sure.
That's this is not like a massive like 4-hour thing. This is, even though there are enough Chucky movies to do that with. This is about I don't know, a little. It's I think under 2 hours. It's maybe like an hour and a half, honestly, maybe a little over. It's not long. Is my point. So yeah, this is done by the head. Tony Gardner was the head puppeteer on all the Chucky stuff, and his daughter Kyra Gardner. She directed this. So she directed this film about kind of the history of making a Chucky, and I feel at the very end of this film, they reveal like who the director of the movie is and what her connection is in the material. And I got to tell you, man, I thought it was a well produced documentary until that happened.
Oh, really?
Right until the end, 'cause the way it happens is just super clunky to me. Where it's like
Ooh.
we're going through it and have this nice little device where, okay, we're putting in like the VHS tapes and the DVDs that kind of show you as Chucky was going on, or like the mediums kind of evolving. Like, isn't that cute as we're kind of going through the making of each film? And then after we get through the last one, last film, with I think it was Cult of Chucky, I think. Then we reveal like and hey, here's the girl behind the camera, and here's her story. And then once they did that, I was like, okay, this is interesting because I heard there was like something in the cell line, like somebody who has a unique connection to Chucky is presented you with this documentary. Um, just it just gets really it gets really drawn out and just kind of
Oh,
drags
really?
about the whole like this is when they get really repetitive about and that's the impact of Chucky and they say that like 5 times and we're going over like how she was like kind of scared, when she went to set, and like we saw this. There's a cameo in like the movie where he got his head chopped off in like Bride or the Seed of Chucky or something, where it's like they decapitated the puppeteer in kind of like a meta gag. So she saw her father's like decapitated head and she ran out screaming.
Uh-huh.
I don't blame her. It's horribly traumatizing, but that's the thing. So I don't know. So they're going over a thing where she's relating to like the real life daughter of Brad Dourif, who actually plays like Chucky's daughter in the movie and the show and stuff. So that's kind of interesting, but it just gets really repetitive at the end. What really bothered me is that they barely talk about the TV show, which is I was kind of looking forward to, like with the update on the Chucky stuff, because I've seen like a retrospective like here or there on the Chucky franchise, and they never really got into the show because the show was a recent thing at the time, and this documentary came out in 2022, which I guess is catching them in the middle of like in the midst of season 2, so they didn't really have much to do. So they mention it. Don't get me wrong, but it's just the division of screen time here is like they don't get into like the weeds with the making of all of these movies. They cover what you need to in the basics, but it's it's like okay, here's where the idea came from. Here's like a little kind of taste of what it was making of, and they breeze through it real quick. It's no like 4-hour hard documentary by any stretch. So it's a little abridged, and again, it's pretty solid until the end.
All right, fair enough. Okay, you're next. So as a horror fan, I have actually heard a lot of things about this movie over the years. It's one of those movies that like kept popping up on retrospectives. Like remember when I watched the like 100 scariest horror movie moments from Shudder, I believe that this was on there. The thing is, I'm never really that big on home invasion movies. I don't know what it is. I think it's just the singular location. It always just kind of feels a little drawn out for me. So here's the thing with this movie. There is not a single likable character, and there are far too many characters because like the movie starts out and it's like okay, you've got like the lead character and his wife, and then the parents, and then like literally dragging like fucking like 3 sets of brothers and their significant others, and a sister and the sister's husband. You see the problem here? Like all of these people, like literally the 3 brothers are basically like indistinguishable as characters. Like they're all just unlikable, like upper class, like white class assholes. Like it's a super unlikable cast. Like there's not a single character here to grant. Like, and the thing with this movie is that I keep hearing like, oh well, the final girl is a really badass. Like she's like an Ellen Ripley, and I'm like, no, not really. I mean, she's like, I guess by comparison, more likable than the others, but she's still like she's kind of just like socially awkward and standoffish for a lot of the film, frankly. I don't really like her. There's a couple good moments, there's a couple good scares from what I remember, but there's honestly a lot of cheap jump scares where it's just like the orchestra spiking when a character enters a room or something. So Yeah, with all the hype, Dragon, I kind of hated this. Honestly, I found it very difficult to get through. I like it was just I don't know. I don't know. I really I genuinely don't understand how this movie is as hyped up in the horror community as it is. I genuinely don't get it, honestly. I really, like I said, I found every single character to just be thoroughly unlikable. And if the point is that, like, yeah, well, they're all getting killed off, they're supposed to be unlikable. Dragon, that is literally my least favorite type of horror is when the characters are all just cannon fodder to be killed off. Like I need some sort of attachment. That's honestly why I think the new Evil Dead movie works so well, is that it was literally like a single mom and her kids. Like that's what made that movie compelling. So yeah, I don't know, man. I thoroughly just these people were both unlikable and boring, and like I said, just borderline like indistinguishable from each other personality wise. I really like it's genuinely some of the worst character work I've seen in a movie in a long time. I don't understand how this is so revered. I don't get it. All right, I'm gonna stop. All right, next up for you.
The Foreigner.
Foreigner, okay.
Yeah, this is one I've mean to get to for a while. It was kind of was recommended to me. Yeah, so this is kind of Jackie Chan's equivalent to like a Liam Neeson revenge film.
Oh, nice. Okay.
It's kind of here's the thing. It's based on a novel, which you or no, you don't have in that sort of genre. It's based on apparently a really good novel. It's very Tika. This movie is very fascinating to me because we love Jackie Chan, right? I think everyone loves Jackie Chan to some degree, and we've seen a fair number of the films.
I mean, like, like you and I, our big thing with Jackie Chan is the tuxedo.
As I'm
Yeah.
saying, we have the tuxedo. I mean, tuxedo Rush Hour. It's the medallion, stuff like that.
Shanghai Nights.
Shang, that's the better example. I meant the site, but yes, that's the thing. So we've seen a fair number of Jackie Chan adventures. We've seen a fair number of Jackie Chan related media. So it's this is so fascinating to me because like one of the things, and we still haven't quite done this yet, but still, just the fact that there's certain roles that we don't really see Jackie Chan in, but would be very interesting to see him in. Like we still haven't seen Jackie Chan play a bad guy, which I don't know if he'd ever do, but it'd be kind of interesting. We don't do that here, but it's just the fact that it's interesting to turn. It's an interesting turn for Jackie Chan to put him in a full-on drama here because we've never really put him in drama. We've usually put him in comedies or that's the thing. We've never we haven't really done that sort of thing with him. And it's just there's a lot of my enjoyment in this movie was seeing Jackie Chan in a drama, like in kind of a dramatic setting. And just taking, like we're taking the fun Jackie Chan staples of an action sequence and we're adjusting the tone in them, though, for it's less like, oh, look at Jackie Chan, just kind of like he's kicking butt and taking names, but he's doing the accidental fighting kind of style there, where it's like, this is a guy really trying to survive right now. People are coming after him, and this guy, he's like, you're rooting for him the whole movie. Like this poor guy, he's trying to avenge his daughter, and his request is very reasonable in trying to find the men that orchestrated what got her killed. And he's a lot of really good acting for him in this. And he's playing opposite Pierce Brosnan, which is a really good idea, by the way. Pierce Brosnan plays this character who's not like he's essentially the bad guy, but he's not like he didn't do the terrible thing to Jackie Chan necessarily. He's in league with the bad guys, but like so essentially the IRA set off a bomb that killed his daughter as like a civilian. Like she just got killed, like it wasn't like a target of the bombing, but basically she was caught in the crossfire of a bomb, and he's trying to find out who because the movie's set in London.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, and basically there's like a bombing, and Pierce Brosnan is like he facilitates the IRA, and he's like not a member of the terrorist organization, but he's like the guy who like back in the day, he had stuff to do with them, and he's kind of trying to clean up the name IRA. So Jackie Chan visits him and he says, like, I'd like the names of the bombers and I want you to find out. He's coming up dead ends. And he basically will not take no for an answer, and he's going to force Pierce Brosnan to tell him. So it's just really interesting. I mean, I didn't expect the IRA. I didn't expect bombings when I saw the trailer for this. I expect Pierce Brosnan to be almost like the law enforcement role in this film. So there's this movie through a lot of loops in terms of what I was going in expecting. It was a real treat, man, and I got to tell you, it proves that the director of this film, Martin Campbell, he actually can direct. He's done films that make you think otherwise. He was the director on Green Lantern.
Ooh, really?
As I'm saying, you look at Green Lantern, you look at it's night and day, and one of the early examples of his probably his better work was Goldeneye. That's what he directed a James Bond movie with Pierce Brosnan as James Bond. Hence, probably how we got Pierce Brosnan in this film. So I don't know. Tiki, it's just if you like Jackie Chan, as I know you do, I'd really recommend. You want to see something different you've never seen before with Jackie
I'm
Chan.
not a huge Jackie Chan fan, but
Well, still, I'm just saying, if you've seen Jackie Chan movies, you want to see like maybe see him do something kind of different than he's done before, but still like get some action in there, but kind of see him get some range. You should see this. You should check this out, man. It's on Netflix.
Okay. All right. Next up. Okay, we have the incident at Loch Ness. Dragon, this movie's fucking wild, and I honestly think it's right up your alley. So, Dragon, essentially, this is, I swear to God, this is a Werner Herzog mockumentary.
Huh.
As in, he is like front and center in it. So the whole premise is that Werner Herzog is making a documentary not about the Loch Ness Monster itself, because, like right up front, he says, like, I don't believe in the Loch Ness Monster, but he is fascinated about like the mythology of it and the folklore of it, right? And how it's kind of like shaped the culture of Scotland. And that's what he wants to make the documentary about. But the problem is that he comes upon a very, very John Peters-esque producer who also, Dragon, is coincidentally enough the guy who wrote X-Men 2, among other like various kind of like weird early 2000s movies. But now he's trying to get into producing. And Dragon, I swear to God, this guy is like the spinning image of Mike Michaud from Channel Awesome. Like the splitting image of the guy.
Really?
And this guy, his whole thing is that he wants to sensationalize the documentary. Like he wants to like stage quote unquote Nessie footage by using barges and shit like that. Like he actively, wants the documentary to be fake just for the sake of like making the documentary and, like actually making it theatrical. And Dragon, Werner Herzog and him just butt heads over the direction of this so hard. And Herzog is just fucking delightful. But the turning point comes when about halfway through the movie, the actual incident at Loch Ness happens, where Herzog actually sees what he thinks is the real Loch Ness Monster, even though it's obvious to everyone else that it's just some dumb prop that this producer guy put in the lake. And Dragon Herzog is mesmerized. And there's this whole bit where he's like, I just kept staring at the water for hours and hours. And, so basically, like, Herzog becomes obsessed with the Loch Ness Monster. Meanwhile, everyone else is just trying to get it done. So the whole movie is like this weird, like, like meta, like it is very inside baseball, right? Like you would not understand the movie at all if you weren't already familiar with Werner Herzog as a filmmaker, right? But like if you were into Werner Herzog, this movie is fucking hilarious. Like it takes a long time to get going, honestly. Like the first half is basically just kind of feels like your average fly on the wall making of, but like once they actually get to Scotland and shit starts going wrong on set, the producer starts, really taking over things, and Herzog starts to get really irritated. It just builds and builds. It's one of those things on YouTube where it's like free with ads, so I would highly recommend it. Like, if what I'm saying is interesting you at all, it's a very delightful, oddball little premise for a movie, and Herzog has never been more likable, man. It's like it is crazy how, for as like weirdly like self-serious as that guy is, that he can do something like this and have it be firmly tongue-in-cheek and like making fun of his whole public persona. Really, really super under the radar movie. But I honestly wouldn't be surprised if this was a movie that like got like someone picked up on and got really popular one day, just because it kind of has like the meta sensibilities of today, even though it was made back in like the early 2000s, I think. All right, so big surprise there. All right, last one for you.
Good night and good luck.
Okay, now this is one of the I believe it's one of the few 2007 very good year for movies, best picture nominees that I haven't seen.
Well, the movie was in 2005, so I don't know how.
Oh, okay, it was 2006 was the Oscars then. My bad. Okay.
Yeah, that's probably, yeah. So, yeah, this is, so this movie's kind of I kind of watched this one for a reason. Yeah, this one was a big one on the list of movies. I kind of, well, not like an actual list, but just kind of like, there are a number of movies my grandfather always recommended me to watch. I didn't really get to, and this one was one I believe me, I wanted to watch, but it was never streaming. So I went out and bought the DVD just so I can get it, to get it watched. So yeah, so man, he hyped this one up like ad nauseam. He loved this movie. So it was from probably because of all the accolades. I'm sure he's again as I said, student of history. Loved like all the real life, like the biopics and everything like that. So again, it came out in 2005. It was directed by Clooney. He got 6 nominations, 3 of which being Best Picture, Director, and Actor. And again, so Clooney he stars in the movie, he co-stars in the movie, and he directs it. So yeah, so essentially, this is oh, by the way, the word is they're actually is like starting last year. I think the word was they're adapting this into an AMC series, which I'm sure the strike did not help things on that, but we'll see how that goes. Yeah, so essentially, the premise of this movie, there's this news show that was back in the day. I'm blanking on the exact name of the news show because I know what the end line was. I forget what the show was called because the end line's "Good night and good luck." He always said that David R. Morrow always would say "Good night and good luck" at the end of every broadcast. So you have David Stratham, or Stratham, I'm saying his name right, David Stratham, who was in The Nightmare Alley. Remember, he was the mentor for the Bradley Cooper character. That guy, good actor.
Sure, yeah.
So he plays the star of this movie, and he was nominated for this. He's great. He plays Morrow, and essentially he runs like a little news show. And George Clooney is like essentially the producer who's like friends with him, who's Fred Friendly, actual name, Fred Friendly. And it's got an A+ cast, man. I mean, you throw a rock, you're going to hit someone with talent. You got Jeff Daniels, you got Ray Wise, you have Frank Langella as the boss man, playing Mr. Paley, as in like the Paley Center of Television, Paley. Robert Downey Jr.'s in this. Yeah, so it's shot in glorious black and white, and essentially it's about this news program that's going against McCarthyism of the time. Like McCarthy's essentially the antagonist of this film. He was taking everyone down with the whole, the Senate meetings and the whole the anti-communism propaganda of it all. Yeah, basically
that's one unsavory thing about Walt Disney that is like factually accurate.
Yeah, I know, it's a whole. Yeah. So essentially, this is about all that, and essentially they're taking kind of a stand against the government by like covering like, hey, they like McCarthy, he basically blacklisted a poor Air Force guy because his family may have suspected of communist leanings. And remember, communist leanings back then is more like they attended maybe a meeting, like, hey, there's this big buzz about what's going on.
Right. Oh, we pretty much saw that play out in Oppenheimer.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. I remember a lot of people, they weren't even fully going to the communists, like, oh, yeah, here, the food's great here. And they're kind of all party meeting. And I was like, did you ever go? Well, I mean, I went there, but I didn't know what it was. But, oh, you went there, though. So, That's the thing. So basically, the whole point of the movie is it's very inspiring how like Stratham's saying, no, we're not gonna bow down to McCarthy and like let him bully people around and make people scared and blacklist them and everything. We're gonna stand up to him and just like cover the news as it is. He's screwing people over for unfounded reasons. There's a violation of his power, and we shouldn't do that. So it's an inspiring story. It's got, again, as I said, good performances. Admittedly, it's more of a slow burn than I expected. That's not to say it's bad. It's just more of a slow. I had no idea. All I had was the title of this movie. I had no idea what it was really about. Um, I mean, I think the clue was that it always come up when I would bring up like McCarthy or like 50 set stuff, and then he would just kind of like, oh yeah, have you ever seen Good Night and Good Luck? You should watch it. So yeah. Anyway, so it's a bit of again, it lived up to the hype, but not in the ways I expected. So it was kind of unique in that regard. I admit though, there is one weird thing that's purely George Clooney, I think, kind of channeling a bit of his mother in the movie, where there is a there's this jazz singer throughout the movie where it feels like, man, that just feels like Clooney just throwing something in there just for the aesthetic. It doesn't really feel like it serves the plot
He
at
has
all.
never really been that great of a director for me, honestly. I do find that he kind of lingers on random shit like that. Like he's always had a problem with pacing for me.
Yeah. I don't know, the painting's a little weird, but I think it does transition well, and we do a nice full circle thing with how it starts and how it ends. But yeah, I mean, it was. I thought it was a very solid movie.
All right, fair enough. Okay, Whisper of the Heart. Dragon, what do you know about this one?
It's a Miyazaki film. Wait, did Miyazaki direct this, or was it just by Ghibli?
It is a Ghibli film. Actually,
Okay.
it's the director's only film, and he died like a few years after it was made. But the director was going to go on to be like another, like he was kind of like lining up to be like the successor to Miyazaki. So there's kind of like an air of tragedy to that. But what else do you know about it?
Uh, he's like a couple on a bike.
Okay, so you don't know much.
I don't know. I don't know anything. I saw like the poster of the movie and it looked good. That's all I know about this one.
Okay. This is the one where that song Country Road gets played a million times. Does that ring a bell?
I'm sorry, what?
The song Country Road gets used a lot in this movie. Does that
No,
ring a bell?
I had no idea about that. No.
Okay. Yeah, some people hear about the Country Road thing and they kind of get dismissive about it because apparently that song's a meme now. So this movie gutted me, and it might be my new favorite Ghibli movie. Mononoke is certainly more ambitious, but this movie is like way more personal. This movie might be the most intimate and personal animated movie I have ever seen in my life. The lead character is essentially an aspiring writer, and she has a budding friendship / romance with the male lead in the movie. There's a lot of kind of like mistaken identity that leads to them meeting. I don't want to get into the details about it, but essentially, Dragon, the movie is about the struggles of creativity and how you can have all the passion in the world for your art. Like, for example, she's a writer, but if you don't, like, it's still going to be like a hard process. And the movie it has a lot of scenes of the character doubting herself. Like, literally the climax of this movie is her handing the story that she's been writing the whole movie off to an old man to read. Basically the first person, because this is a character who made her promise like to be the first person to read her story, and he's essentially the only one who even knows that she's writing a story. And so we just spend time, like, she's like, I have to know what you think of it now. Like, it's not like I can't just come back later once you've finished. Like, you have to, like, her hands are literally shaking. Like, you have to read this like right now and give me feedback right now. And so there's this moment that just absolutely fucking guts me. Like it's honestly one of the most hard-hitting emotional scenes I have maybe ever seen in a movie, just because of how empathetic I felt with it and how relatable it was. Where this old man finishes the story and he basically says, like, it's a really good start, right? Like, it's a rough draft. You definitely have to polish it up. It's a good start. And Dragon, the way that she just like unloads about like every single thing that she does not like about the story and how she, she messed it all up and she needed it to be perfect and it's not perfect and she's a terrible writer and it's fucking gutting, man. But the whole thing with this movie is that it's it's very emotional. It shows the struggle for sure. And honestly, like the ending, it's not like she becomes a famous author at the end. Like, it's very clear she's got a long way to go, but it's just kind of like that push and pull of like following your passion versus, sticking to your real world responsibilities. My one nitpick with this movie is that I think the lead character is way too young for the emotions that they're trying to pull out of you, because she's essentially like a middle schooler transitioning into high school. And frankly, I think she should have been a college student, because they have a big emphasis on like she's kind of like skipping out on her school studies to do the writing, and that's like a big point of conflict with her parents. And it's like, yeah, sure. I imagine in Japan, it's a lot different. Like, it's probably like a cultural sort of distance that I have with this particular plot line where, like in America, it really doesn't, like graduating from 8th grade to 9th grade into high school is really like, there's no real ceremony to it. But I imagine it seems like in Japan, there's like some sort of like rigorous like SAT style test that you have to pass just to go on to high school, essentially. So like I said, it's a cultural thing. I'm sure if I probably knew more about Japanese culture, I'd relate to it a little bit more. But regardless, I have been exactly in this character's shoes in college, taking creative writing classes, going to workshops, like pouring your heart into something, but still knowing that ultimately it's still not the best that it could be, but running out of time and having to present it. Yeah, I mean, and like I said, just the fact that it's this director, like, like Miyazaki and Takahata were, of course, like the two main directors at Ghibli. But this guy, that like, this was early into Ghibli's run, right? Like, this was mid 90s. And this guy very easily could have been like another Takahata, like another like major secondary director to Miyazaki. But he passed away just a couple years after this movie was made, which just gives it this air of tragedy. So yeah, this movie it really blew me away, Dragon. It really did. Like I said, I think Princess Mononoke is still like, like the mind-blowing, like hugely ambitious, like the most visually impressive animated movie I've probably ever seen. This, honestly, like I said, it might be the most emotionally rich animated movie that I've ever seen. And I tell you one thing, man, after I've seen this, now I definitely got to catch up on stuff like The Wind Rises. I really need to kind of like round out my Ghibli watching. So
Yeah, join the club.
all right, best and worst, Dragon. What do you got?
That's really tricky. I mean, worse. I mean, it's kind of a weird thing where, it, I guess, it's mostly out of content. Really, I mean, I guess Scout's Honor only because it's depressing. That's not really a good reason to put it.
No, you're right. That is not a good
reason.
Say
it. I mean, I think technically it would be Barbie then.
That's like saying like best and worst. Worst, 12 Years a Slave, because it made me feel bad.
That's what I'm saying. So I can't. Put, I mean, I guess Barbie then, right? So it's, I don't know.
Oh man. Okay. I mean,
I don't know. Look, I don't know if we even have a word. I don't know. It's nothing really. I don't really have anything ostensibly bad or like really. That's the thing. Chucky's had like a disappointing ending, and Barbie has a kind of a deflating third act. So I'm kind of like going off the numbers. I mean, it's kind of Barbie.
All right, all right.
Best is like, I mean, again, there's some good ones. I mean, I did enjoy Dumb Money, but I don't think it holds a candle against something like Good Night and Good Luck. And I mean, I really like
Oh,
this between The Foreigner and Good Night and Good Luck for the best. I think I'm gonna probably side with. I'm probably gonna side with Good Night and Good Luck.
fair
That
enough.
has some really good performance moments. I don't know. It was really that. I don't know.
All right, for me, best was it was gonna be Bottoms for a long time, but I saw Whispers of the Heart like literally like yesterday. Blew me the fuck away. Like I said, one of the most emotionally resonant animated movies I've ever seen. So I got to go with that. And then worst for me, pretty easily, freaking You're Next. I just do not get the hype about that movie at all. It did practically nothing for me. All right. Well, folks, we've waxed on long enough. Really quick. I'm sorry, really quick. Shout out to Code Geass, Richard's Victims, Monkey, and I believe that's it. Yeah, that's it. Shout out to you three in the comments. You guys rock. And Keeper Colby. Keeper Colby as well. Yeah, okay. I'm sorry, Dragon. Well, folks, we've waxed on long enough, and it's time to put the pen down. But don't worry. We'll be back again next month for even more
Movie memoir.
movie memoirs.